Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden. If you're watching this not live, because this is a live stream, be sure to check the description or the pinned comment for when to skip ahead to in the live stream. In the meantime, we're going to be hanging out here in the waiting room, so I'll see you soon. Hello, friends. Welcome to Coding Garden. Welcome to our weekly discussion and also a weekly code challenge stream. So good to see you all. But if you're curious what this is, over in our Discord, we have a weekly discussion channel and also a weekly challenge channel. So we're going to be discussing last week's weekly discussion, which is, are you using TypeScript in your JavaScript project? If so, why? Let's take a quick break. This always seems to happen. This happened last time too. At the beginning of my live stream, the break timer kicks in. All right. So last week's weekly discussion was: are you using TypeScript in your JavaScript project? If so, why? If not, why not? What are some benefits you've noticed of using TypeScript? What are some downfalls? If you haven't started using TypeScript, what is stopping you from making the switch? So this was our discussion topic from last week. We had a few people chime in the discussion here. We'll go over their answers and discussion points. We'll also talk about mine and my perspective on it. And I'd love to hear from you all in the chat as well. So that's what we're going to be discussing. If you're interested in this kind of thing, join the Discord and you can participate in the weekly discussion. So next week's discussion is, what was your first programming language? If you had to start over, would you learn the same first language again? What are your favorite programming languages? And are there certain projects you've worked on that made more sense to write in a certain language? So that'll be the discussion for next week. And then this week's weekly challenge, which we'll do second, was a series of Code Wars Code Katas. So if you look in the weekly challenge channel, these are the 3 katas that I asked you all to do. So there's an 8Q, which is removing elements, a 7Q, largest pair sum in an array, and a 6Q, encrypt this. So these are increasing in difficulty. I would say if you're a beginner programmer, you could probably start with the 8Q, and then if these get too hard for you, don't worry about it. Like it'll take, you'll get better eventually, but you can do the easier ones. Some people chose to do all 3, which is great. And so whenever we do this, we will be reviewing all 3 solutions from people. And then next week's challenge, if you want to start working on that, is a CSS battle. So we're attempting to recreate this image with CSS, but that'll be for next week. So let's get into it. Let's say hi to everybody and welcome everyone in. Hello. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, so if you look in the challenge channel, we talk about how you can use spoilers. I linked to how to do it in the Discord documentation. But yeah, the whole point of that is so that people don't see your code unless they want to. So if I want to see someone's solution, I can click on it and then that reveals it. So that's how we can share our solutions without spoiling them for everyone else. Cool. But yeah, welcome in everyone. Let me just say hi to everybody. If you want to say hi to me in the chat, you can say hi, hello, hey, yo, cheers, greetings, hiya, sup, what's up, morning, afternoon, howdy, good day, coding hiyo, vohayo, bogahe. Say any one of these things. I will acknowledge you, and we'll get right into it. So, going back in time to 33 minutes ago, Rear Window Soda was the first to say hello. What's up, Rear Window Soda? Welcome in. And hello, Siraj. Good to see you. What's up, Yurisco and Guarab and Irasam and Nightzik. Hello. What's up, Pobflip and Default and Liam Stevens. Hello. What's up, Julian? And Aladbar and Adarsh and Jonah Joe and Vicus and Mark Boots and JS Dev and BTRSL. What's up, Hiroga? And Idrak Hat Iwata. Good to see you. What's up, Paulo? And Lemur, and Full Stacker Dev, and Everything Pro. What's up, Zelino and Veritatas, and Alka? It's been a while, Alka. I miss you, Alka. Every time I see your face in the chat, I'm happy to see it. Hello, welcome in. What's up, Azam, and Asing, and Macaroni Pizza Pie, and Nico. Hello, I'm doing all right. I'm not too bad. I'm excited for this discussion today. I mean, based on the number of people that are already here, I think this is going to be a topic that people are interested in terms of like, should you use TypeScript? Yeah. And Mark T. Hurst, good to see you. What's up, Hackman? And Obey Hamid, good to see you. I'm going to give you all a watching a live stream on YouTube life hack. So if you go to the live stream and you set the playback speed to 2x and then just like let it get caught up. Once it gets completely caught up, it will be as close to possible as real time. So like 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so I only have about a 4-second delay between me and the live stream. So if you want to do that and get as real time as possible, you can do that. Yeah. We weren't supposed to do all 3. Oh no, you totally could. You totally could do all 3 of the code challenges from last week. Yeah, it's fine. You can do all 3. I really just meant it from the perspective of there are certain people that are like brand new to programming and they want to participate, and it can be very discouraging if they try the harder ones and they can't solve them. So I really only mention that for people that are like early in their programming journey, so that way they don't feel like they should be able to do something when in actuality it can be hard for certain people. Yeah. So that's that. All right. Can I create a playlist for Node, Express, and Nest? You mean like create new videos? You can definitely check out my existing videos. If you just search Express across all coding guarding videos, there's quite a few. A tutorial? It's been a while since I did a Express type tutorial. I mean, it's been a while since I've done any any tutorial. Yeah, is a real it basically it just gets you as live as low latency as possible, because for whatever reason the YouTube live stream sometimes gets a little bit behind. So yeah. But all right, let's get into the discussion. So I titled this live stream and you're probably clicking on it, and the title here is like, should you use TypeScript? Now, you could want a yes or no answer on that, but in order to get to the answer of should you use TypeScript, I think we should hear from people that have used TypeScript and hear their opinions on it. And so in order to do that, this is our discussion points here. So are you using TypeScript in your JavaScript project? If so, why? If not, why not? What are some of the benefits you've noticed of using TypeScript? What are some downfalls? If you haven't started using TypeScript, what is stopping you from making the switch? So honestly, let's just start with this first point here. Are you using TypeScript in your JavaScript project? And not even the if so, why or why not. Let's just take a poll. Let's see, like in the chat of people using things like, are you using TypeScript in your current project? We'll just say your current project. Answer yes, no, don't have a current project. So that way you're not interfering with the yes or no votes. Vote now. Vote now. We'll do the same poll over on Twitch chat. No, I mean we'll talk about that. It's still a JavaScript project. Like I think honestly that might come down to like how you even think about TypeScript. Are you using TypeScript in your current project? Yes, no. What was the other option? Don't have a current project. Vote now. The Twitch poll already exists. Thank you. Awesome. Glad to hear it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I think this point right here. So if I'm using TypeScript in my JavaScript project, doesn't it make it a TypeScript project? Maybe, but the thing is, especially with the way that TypeScript works, is in a TypeScript project, you can ignore TypeScript in certain places, and then it's just JavaScript. Like you can't have TypeScript without JavaScript is really what I'm saying here. So it's a JavaScript project that uses TypeScript. That's how I think about it. I see what you're saying. Alka said already did the poll. I didn't. I thought you meant that you'd already responded to the poll. I didn't realize you created it for me, and I appreciate that. Are there any React Native courses out there with TypeScript? I bet there are. You don't need to hear it from me. I think honestly, I might just be done with tutorials. I'm here to talk. I'm here to do things live. And putting things into a tutorial is hard work that I don't necessarily want to do. React Native TypeScript. There you go. There's a bunch of courses already. I'm sure you can find one. All right. How do I end the poll? Is it possible to end poll? All right. Let's see. So, here we go. Of the 58 people that voted, half are using TypeScript. So this is the YouTube poll. And this is just a small sampling of the audience. I would honestly think of, so if you're thinking about like the potential bias in the poll, it's that people tuning into this live stream might want to be convinced of it. Like they may not be using TypeScript, so that's what that's going to skew the vote one way. Or you have very opinionated people tuning in that want to evangelize TypeScript, and so then that's going to lean more towards the yes vote. So that's something you have to consider as well. But you know, it's all data here. So of 8 total votes, we have 38% yes, 38% no, and don't have a current project, 2%. Cool. Oh yeah, how's my YouTube green? I'm using an extension for that. If you check out the frequently asked questions, well, not there. It has a link to that all the browser extensions that I use. There we go. Here. But yeah, the extension I use is called Enhancer for YouTube, and then I'm using the YouTube deep dark green theme that goes along with that. All right, let me catch up on the chat. You heard I am a noob. What? Sure, okay. Um, eh, okay. Um, let's see. TypeScript is chef's kiss. TypeScript reduces code readability. Yeah, there's a lot of opinions in both directions. We're going to talk about it though. Um, nice. Yeah, honestly, this would be useful for me. Like, there are a lot of Spanish-speaking Twitch streamers that I want to watch, but Twitch doesn't have a way of like real-time translation or real-time, yeah, even for like translated subtitles or anything like that. 38 plus 38 plus 2 is not 100. What is it? 99? 79? How did I get that wrong? Oh, 25%. That's why. Not two votes, 25%. Yeah. Mark Boot says, unfortunately, I decided last week to quit programming as a profession. I love the work, but the pressure got me too many times over the last couple of years. It was making me anxious. I will still do it for fun personal projects. Well, that's unfortunate to hear, but also I think good to hear. I think the fact that you knew that you needed to make a decision and make a career move and like a life-changing move of that magnitude is pretty big. So congrats on the decision. And I wish you luck in what you're going to do next and what you're going to figure out. Yeah. And C. Winter says, the longer I've been a developer, the longer I've realized that people that spout the benefits of one technology without saying anything about the downsides are just fanboys. Exactly, which is why we're going to have a nuanced, very long discussion, right? Like, this is not going to be a viral YouTube video because it's going to be 3 hours long, and we're going to be talking about the pros and cons. And you're probably going to realize through that discussion that there are just as many pros as there are cons, and like that's life, and you need to make a decision based on that. But it's possible that based on your perspective, you might see more pros than cons, and maybe that's why you decide to use it. But yeah. Yeah, like I think I knew what you were saying, like spout the benefits and stuff. I'm using it in my current project, but it doesn't mean it's my choice. Yeah, I think that's another thing to consider is like, and maybe we even, I'm not going to do another poll because it takes a long time to do a poll, but that's the other thing to consider is you're just working on a team that does TypeScript. You aren't necessarily the decision maker of that project. So yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. So based on this poll, of it's like probably less than 50% of people in this chat right now are using TypeScript. Yeah, and I think that's the other thing. Obviously, like this is where the nuance comes in, right? Because I too have projects that are not TypeScript and projects that are TypeScript. So yeah. Okay, so just to answer this question, are you using TypeScript in your project? Let's say roughly half of the people watching right now are using TypeScript and half are not. Let's talk about this next thing. If you're using it, why are you using it? If you're not using it, why are you not using it? I'll give my answers. Yeah, why are you using it? And yeah, I guess my answer to the poll is yes, I am using it. So SvelteKit, so my listed project, I would consider my current project. It's one of the main things I'm working on right now. And we're using TypeScript in that project. So my answer to this poll is yes, I am using TypeScript. Now, like Alka said, I have other projects, older projects that are not using TypeScript that are still in production. But if I'm talking about the thing I work on most and most recent, then yes. Why am I using it? For me, it's the editor support. One thing is how good the editor support is. And Eddie, thank you for the bits. Let's read your message. Not a fun topic, but have you ever experienced burnout? If so, what did you do to resolve it? I'm going through this and in the recovery process. Yeah, I have. I think I've talked about it on past streams. And I honestly, when I left my job like a year and a half ago, I was burnt out. And honestly, I can't even say I'm fully recovered. I'm definitely better than I was, and I've been doing things to help it, which I'll talk about. But um, I think especially depending on how bad you get burnt out, it can be very hard to recover. For me, I mean, so in general, like burnout is like a mental health issue, right? Like you essentially get so tired of a thing that you don't have the motivation to do a thing, and also like it affects other parts of your life. So you're too tired to do anything or have motivation to do anything. So in a way, it's kind of like a form of depression, and also I guess it's also like being like overworked to the point to where you just like can't work anymore. And I think this is the other thing, Hushu. It's like a lot of people associate burnout with working too much, but I think you can still be burnt out only working 3 hours a day. And some people might like laugh at that or scoff at that. Also, yeah. So let's just we're stopping talking about TypeScript for now. Now we're going to talk about burnout. And feel free to chime in the chat if we're talking about burnout. Um, if you have opinions on burnout, if you've experienced burnout. Yeah, like I said, burnout isn't necessarily that you've overworked yourself. It's also possible that you're not doing fulfilling work. And even if you only work 2 or 3 hours a day, if it's not fulfilling, that could burn you out. That could basically make you feel like you don't want to do that work. Or like if you're doing things that you don't want to be doing. The other aspect of burnout is like not seeing the results of your efforts, right? So if you've been working on a project for like, let's say years, and it never actually ships to production, or like you never actually get to see the benefits of all the work that you're doing, that can result in burnout too, because you're like, I've been putting all this effort and work into this, but I'm not getting any payout. I'm not getting any results or resolution of the efforts that I'm putting in. The other thing that can cause burnout is like spinning wheels and like bureaucracy, right? Like, so like working at a company or at a large company where it takes forever to get anything done. So like, let's say you want to do a thing and then you have to get, let's say, permission is one thing. You might also need to get buy-in from other people. You might also be waiting on someone else in the company that has the information that you need or has the what's the word? Yeah, it has a lot of different things, but let's say like has the pull in the company to make the thing happen that you want to happen, and you're waiting on them, or there's like institutional knowledge that hasn't been documented somewhere else, and you're waiting on them, or you might be waiting on people to give you new requirements or give you feedback. I think that's another thing that can cause burnout is you're just sitting around waiting. All of that to say, like, I don't think there's not just one thing that causes burnout. There's a lot of different things that can cause someone to basically just not be motivated to work anymore, and also just like not have the energy to work anymore. I think, and so we could talk about resolving it, but I think this is important advice to hear if you're not burnt out right now. The main way to prevent burnout is to take breaks before you are burnt out. Because if you're already burnt out, it's kind of too late. It's like you now need to just recover from that. And then like if you can't take a break from your job, that's still now a part of your life that you have to go to every day. And so like the burnout continues there. It's a tricky situation. So that's my advice for anybody that isn't burnt out right now. Take breaks. So take breaks from work during the day. Make sure you have a clear delineation between when work starts and when work stops. What else? And then I think the thing that's going to help resolve it is also the thing that can help prevent it, which is like take care of yourself, take care of your mind, take care of your body. If you are not getting good sleep, it's going to be a lot easier to burn out, right? Because you have less energy during the day. And so, lack of sleep can definitely cause burnout. The other thing is like not eating good foods. Like, I think it's not even a point that needs to be proven at this point, that if you eat nutritious foods and you eat like within a certain calorie limit in the day, you will feel better. just in general. Like if you eat better, you're going to feel better. That's like I don't think there's anything controversial about that statement. You could get controversial about the kind of diets that you might go on and stuff like that. But I think in general, eating whole natural foods is good for your body and makes you feel better. So if you're not eating that kind of food, other types of things can definitely drag you down, right? So like fatty, sugary foods can cause you to crash. And then on top of that, like weight gain and not exercising can also make it so that your body isn't healthy, and that makes it hard for your mind to be healthy as well. So for me, the resolve has been eating better, getting better sleep, and trying to exercise. I'm still not good about the exercise piece, but yeah, basically treating your body like a machine that needs specific works. Specific things to work in certain ways, right? Like consider like the food you consume as fuel for your body, and if it's good fuel, you're going to have more energy and feel better, right? If you exercise, you're going to be more active. It's going to potentially allow your mind to be more active, and it'll also allow you to have more resolve and more ability to deal with things at work and not get easily frustrated or burnt out by it. So yeah, my resolve is taking care of my body, getting good rest, and then also trying to work on things that I enjoy working on. Because yeah, I can say my burnout came from a never-ending project that basically I was always waiting on someone, and like it never got finished. There was never really resolve. My burnout also came from working on things that I didn't enjoy or didn't want to be working on. Now, I also realize that it's an incredibly privileged thing to say that like I'm not working on the things that I want to be working on, because most people have to just do what pays the bills, right? You don't always get to choose what you get to work on. But I think also depending on where you're at in your career, you might work towards being in a position where you can choose the things that you work on and you can work on the things that you enjoy. But that's not always something you have control over, especially in a job market where like it's hard to find jobs to begin with. So yeah, all of that to say, I have experienced burnout. I think the main way to get out of it is to treat your body well, treat your mind well, and then also be vocal at work. Like you should let your boss know at work, hey, I'm feeling this way. I need to take some time off, or I need to be moved to another project, or my role needs to be shifted on the team so that I can better benefit the team and not be experiencing this burnout, that kind of thing. But yeah, let me catch up on the chat and see what other people have said. Yeah. I was hospitalized for 5 days because of burnout. After that, I just don't care that much about the company's project. Not caring and just doing less work is a relief. Yeah, I guess you could go the other route too, is like, if you care too much about a thing and you're realizing that that's what's causing you to burn out, and you realize, hey, I don't have to care as much, and then that actually gives you relief. That's another way to do it for sure. Yeah. Roga says, I was burnt out from running my own company, to be honest. I'm really looking forward to working 8-hour, 5 days a week for a change and not having an entire company's worth of responsibility on my shoulders. Yeah. It's an unfathomable amount of pressure to feel responsible for ensuring all your employees can pay their bills on time, if that makes sense. No, absolutely. I think that's another perspective on burnout as well, is as like a manager or as a person running a company. I mean, on top of that, you're probably also doing the daily work of the business as well. So yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. And Subs says, this is literally me at the moment, building products for ages and never getting a resolution from it. Yeah. And Everything Pro says, I used to overwork on the weekend, but I'm just enjoying the weekend. It helps. Yeah, so I think that's the other aspect that has been helping me get over burnout, is for one, having a clear delineation between when work starts and when work stops, and then also reserving the weekends for myself and my wife and my dog. Because in the past, like I would live stream on weekends, or I would be like cramming work on Sunday night before the week started on Monday, and that didn't help. And so trying to be more specific about when I'm working and when I should be doing work also helped. I'm sure some people consider it a controversial, yeah, to eat health. I think this was earlier when I was talking about eating healthy food. Yeah. Yeah. For me, is it COVID time crashed all my exercise habits and they haven't recovered still. C time? Is that what we're calling it now? I've never heard it called C time. Is it COVID time? Is that what you're saying? Roga says, for employee burnout, I'm always curious. Is it that you're allowing people to overwork you? Is it the inability to say no to unrealistic expectations that are placed on you? Where does it come from? I think I answered that question. If I didn't, feel free to ask again. Because it can come from a lot of different places. It's not just one spot, and it's different for everyone. C. Winter says, maybe a bit of a hot take, but I found a lot of the time I'm not burnt out. I'm just bored. Switching jobs or working on back end instead of front end is usually what refreshes me. Yeah, I think the other thing is like, I don't know if there is a clear definition of burnout that you can just say, oh yes, I am burnt out. To me, in a sense, I think it's just being fed up. And then on top of that, not having the energy to continue on. Because if you're fed up and you have the energy to just move past it or do something else, I would say you're not burnt out, right? You're basically, because I think that's the other aspect of being burnt out is it's like so hard to get out of, right? It's so hard to have the motivation to even move past. But if you potentially do have the motivation to move past it, you could maybe, I guess you could maybe call it like light burnout or maybe you're not even burnt out at all. Yeah. And the thing is, like, I don't think it's a hot take, C. Winter. I think you have, there are some people that don't experience it as much, but they also potentially don't necessarily understand what the other person is experiencing. And they also, you might also have coping mechanisms that other people do not have, which is what causes it to get worse. Yeah, the other hobbies help. So yeah, so C. Winter mentioned they picked up skydiving, but yeah, I think that's completely it. Picking up things that are not work and things that occupy your time and make you feel happy outside of work are definitely a way to do it. Eddie says, thank you for your wisdom. I was happy to know that I'm already doing everything you mentioned to feel better. Yeah, and I think so. Beyond that, it takes time, right? So like you're doing everything you can. You can't just expect it to be healed overnight. It takes time. It takes time. So yeah, I think as long as you keep doing those things, it'll get better. Roga says, I feel like burnout and boredom are two ends of the spectrum. I wasn't bored of running my company. I was exhausted. That's burnout in my opinion. Sure, but boredom can cause people to feel like there is no purpose. It can cause people to feel like they have a dead-end job where they don't get to do what they love. And it may feel like they're going to have to do that for the rest of their lives. And then that feeds into like their own self-doubt and their own ability to even be productive at all. So that's where we're coming from, is what I'm saying. If I'm burnt out, I burn the code base. Yeah. We need a burnout sensor. Yeah. I don't know. I think especially since COVID happened, like there's a lot of mental health issues that came about in people when we all had to be in lockdown and we all spent less time around each other and we all spent less time going to work in person and working from home. Like, I feel like most people are not equipped to handle that type of social interaction and lack of social interaction. I would say personally, I thrive in that kind of social interaction, but I would say most people don't, which caused certain mental health issues, which also fed into the idea of like being burnt out and stuff like that. Depends on the person and the job. I mean, I would agree with, I think that's the other tricky part about burnout is like, there's not just one type of burnout, right? It's everyone can burn out in their own way. And I think it kind of all goes back to like mental health, I think. As an employee, you can experience long stretches of menial tasks that seemingly serve no purpose and then jump straight into stretches of high effort. The management needs it done by last week kind of work. Yeah, that can definitely cause it. I think the other thing, like if you're thinking about this from a business owner perspective or a manager perspective, like what can you do to prevent burnout in your employees? And I think it's just communication and actually like caring about that kind of thing, right? So like if you notice that someone is overworking themselves, you tell them and you give them some vacation days. If you notice that someone is bored or isn't being fulfilled, you try to find work for them. Those kinds of things. I think that's the other from the other end of it. Like if you're someone who has some kind of pool in the company, or you're at a higher position where you can give people vacation days and stuff like that, you can prevent it from happening by being a good manager. And I've had those kinds of managers in my career, like managers that are like, hey, you seem really overworked right now. Take Friday off. Or I see that you haven't taken a vacation in 4 months. It's probably time, that kind of thing. I would say, yeah, it's less common, like Fanvira is saying, like, it's not very common, but I would hope that people that recognize these things when they eventually get into higher positions and manager type positions, they would keep those kinds of things in mind. And what's up, William Cameron? Welcome in. BTRSL says, whenever I think I'm not putting enough time on my works, I believe that's my healthy state. Yeah. And I think just to tie it back into this idea of mental health, because I do realize there are some people watching right now that still don't even understand burnout. They're like, what? How can you be burnt out? Think about it like this, and maybe you haven't thought about this before, maybe you have. If you talk to someone that has chronic depression and you tell them, hey, why don't you just feel better? That is not, that's not good advice. That's not actionable advice. And if anything, it probably makes them feel worse. So to talk about burnout from like, oh, well, why can't you be okay with not doing things that are fulfilling? Like we're all different people. We all take things in different ways, and not everyone can do a menial task and not feel fulfilled and still be okay with that, right? So like everyone experiences the world in a different way. You can't just say, well, why don't you just do this and that? Yeah, and I think if you don't believe in depression, then you're wrong. Very clearly, it is a thing. There are people in the world that you interact with that have been diagnosed with chronic depression, and you see it in how they behave and how they interact with the world. So if you don't believe in it, then I think you're just what's the word? I don't know. I don't know. But obviously, I don't think that you don't believe in it. I think that there are people that might be that way. But yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that's intuitively been my take. Yeah, it depends on the person and the job. Intuitively been my take on it. I suppose it's different for everyone, but what is the outcome if you continue working at a reasonable pace and consciously opt not to overexert yourself? It also I think the other thing about that is it has to align with your own ideals and like goals about like what do you want to be getting out of your job, right? Because if working at a reasonable pace and not exerting yourself is still fulfilling for you, I think like that's kind of the sweet spot, right? And Lake, he says, also other people can cause burnout in you. I know some people who are coasting instead of working, and when trying to work as a team effort, it seems like they are actively working against you. Yeah, but I think, and this is the other thing that can happen on a team, right? If other people on your team are not pulling their weight, and you feel like you have to do more work to account for them, that can cause burnout, right? I think the issue there also comes from expectations and just like team communication, because the other people might not realize that they're not pulling their weight, or they might just be okay with, yeah, I'm not going to pull my weight at work, but yeah, CJ just picks up all the slack, so I'm going to let him do that. But there might not be communication there that's like, hey, when CJ's picking up the slack, that makes him have to work longer hours and spend time doing things that he doesn't necessarily want to be doing. So if you could actually pick up the slack and work a little bit more, that would help him. Those kinds of things. But yeah, I also think it comes from unmatched expectations of team members and employees at a company. Yeah. I just want to rewrite my React code base in Vue when I feel burned out. This is how I know it's time for a holiday. Yeah, if you ever feel like burn it all down, like I think that's the other thing, is if you ever feel like I don't have the energy to even fight for my own opinion or fight for my own point, or even I don't have the energy to work through the issues I'm having in the app that I'm building, I think that's a form of burnout. I think like you're burnt out on the current way of doing things, and it feels as if you were to just start completely over, everything would be perfectly fine. which is typically not the case. I think typically, like as programmers and like we are problem solvers. Like our jobs are literally to get problems and solve them, whether it's like figuring out a new framework or library, or whether it's using that framework or library to actually solve problems. So that is what we do. And so if you ever feel like you don't want to solve problems anymore, you're kind of feeling like you don't want to do this job anymore. Yeah. Yeah, well, and this is like another way to take it as well. I think like a lot of people feel like they should be fulfilled from their job. And I get that because we spend over half of our lives working that job. And for a lot of people, they feel that they need to get fulfillment and enjoyment from that job. But I think that is where some burnout can come from, because a lot of times that's not going to happen. Like you're not going to be fulfilled. It's going to be frustrating because it is a job at the end of the day. So one potential way to deal with burnout is to just say, yeah, like my job is my job. At the end of the day, I go home and that's it. That's it. That's all. My mood doesn't have to be tied to that job. But this is incredibly hard to do, right? I don't think, I think the majority of people can't mentally separate themselves in that way, right? So like, let's say something really frustrating happens at work. And like, yeah, maybe there's some opinion you had about the direction of a project, and you had a multi-hour long meeting where you were fighting for that opinion, and at the end of it all, they went with someone else's opinion of what should be done. And then it's 5 p.m. and you have to go home now. I would say the majority of people can't shake that. The majority of people can't be like, oh, work's over, I'm just gonna go be happy now. You're gonna be thinking about the multiple hours during the day that you spent like expelling energy and fighting for your opinions and stuff like that. I mean, you could also argue that if you had this mentality, you wouldn't even fight for your opinion, because you'd just be like, oh, my opinion doesn't matter. We're just going to do what they want to do. And then at the end of the day, I get to go home. But it's hard to do. It's not an easy thing. Yeah. No, it's okay, Eddie. It's a fun conversation. And a lot of people are chiming in, which I think is good. I think anybody that's watching live or gets to watch the live stream VOD is going to identify with all of these varying opinions and points of view. So I think that's the whole point of all this. Roga says, if you've never experienced true depression, I can understand how you wouldn't believe in it, but you should believe in the science of it. It's a real thing. It's just not something that you've personally experienced, which is great for you, but it definitely exists. Yeah, I think that's the other aspect of people that potentially have that mentality, is like they lack empathy. Like they lack the ability to think and from other people's perspectives, or think or put themselves in other people's shoes. Yeah. Crom says, I think I'm in a burn-in phase. I need to be careful, but at least I've got 2-week vacations next week. I feel so exhausted. Yeah. That's good to hear that you're feeling it, but you're about to go on vacation, so that will prevent it from happening, I think. Wada said, the only time a manager, I said to a manager I'm burnout, they offered me a raise, if that's the solution. Yeah, the thing is, for some people, it might be. And like some people might be burnout because they feel like they're working for a salary that's too low. And if they had more motivation of more money, that might help. But I mean, personally, that wouldn't help me. I specifically took a job at a smaller company that makes less money than working at a larger corporation because I wanted to be in that environment. Like I knew that I wouldn't be making a ton of money comparatively to like a Fortune 500 company or a FANG company or something like that. No, we're talking about burnout. Well, we already have next week's topic, but we'll put it on the list here in the Discord. There is a thread for topic ideas. Burnout. We'll make it a weekly discussion at some point. Maybe next week. I think becoming a software engineer helps you solve problems in real life as well. I would agree with that. I would agree that a lot of people that didn't do some kind of engineering discipline lack the framework, the mental framework for breaking things down and solving problems. And thank you for the resub, Alka. I appreciate that. Yeah, Daddy Ray says, I have major depression and anxiety. I'm currently on 3 different meds daily for it. Yeah, I think that's the other aspect of it. Like if you think that depression doesn't exist, but there are people that are clinically depressed and also prescribed medication that helps, right? Like there isn't like really a cure for depression and anxiety, but there are medications that help with it. Like how can you say, how can you say it doesn't exist? Like literally these things help people. I guess at that point you might just think it's like a placebo effect or something like that. I don't know. How does burnout lead you to use TypeScript more? BTRSL says, when you don't have energy and push yourself, it just makes you feel bad and leads to depression or burnout. You look at your code base, can't explain to yourself what you're going to do next. Stop there. Yeah. Recently switched from a corporation job to a local company. The job is more hands-on and the tasks are meaningful, but it's less organized, and I miss the corpo talk people trash because the alternate is abuse. I don't know if I get that last sentence there, but that's kind of the route that I went in my career. But I didn't miss the corporate talk. I did not miss the bureaucracy or anything else like that. I definitely like knowing all the people at the company, and because the company is smaller, it's a lot easier for, I feel like, for people to be honest, and not have more of a corporate attitude. Because to me, a corporate attitude is like you're almost like putting on a mask for work. Like you're playing business when you go to work. And I don't like working in an environment like that. I like to just be me, and I like to be around people that are mostly being themselves as well. Yeah. Fran is saying, I have so many ideas, so many cool projects in my mind, but after my job, I'm so burnt out and I just can't keep coding on the weekend. I want to chill and spend time with my wife. Yeah, I think that's okay. And I think, I mean, we kind of talked about it earlier too, but it's like, you don't necessarily have to do fun things with your job skill set. Like it can just be work that you do during the work week, and then the rest of the time you're doing other things. But yeah. Yeah. If I was living alone without my wife, then yeah, I guess I would have more time. I think that's the other aspect is like earlier on in life when you don't have kids or you don't have a partner, you potentially have less obligations and less responsibilities. It's a lot easier to do things in your spare time. But um, if we're talking about like getting fulfillment out of life, that's how, I mean, that's part of the fulfillment that I get out of life is spending time with my wife, spending time with my dog, um, those kinds of things. So like I don't necessarily need fulfillment from the work that I do, but I kind of do. I think that's the issue with what I do is I get fulfillment out of what I produce, whether it's at work or now coding garden and live streaming and stuff like that. Yeah. Sometimes you're tired, but pushing yourself will lead to burnout. Yeah, I think that's another thing is you're so tired and then you have to keep going even though you're tired. You just get to a point where you just can't anymore. I haven't tried the latest bun, no. We have a tech lead that's a waterfall guy in our agile environment. Our tech designs take 2 to 5 days due to this. Yeah. Yeah, 41 months from Alka. That's crazy. They've been here since the beginning. C Winter says, I work at a Fortune 50 company. Luckily, they take work-life balance seriously. It was actually a negative on my last review that I worked too much. Took it seriously and don't touch work on the weekend. Nice. And so, like, I mean, I think that's an example of a company where the management cares about their employees and is willing to do things to prevent burnout from happening. Yeah. Yeah. Mark Boots says, to be frank, I thought lightly about burnout and depression before. I was so wrong. Yeah, and I think it's great that you can admit that too, because I think a lot of people might bash on burnout or bash on like people that have depression and stuff like that until they experience it themselves. Yeah. Root says, I'm thankful for my job. I'm on a small team with the co-founders being developers too. So if there's a time I'm feeling burnt out on a ticket or a feature, I can find something else to do. Nice. I like corporate because the separation from my private life. Yeah. What's up, Finder the Guy Swing? Good to see you. Suraj says, I'm glad we're talking about this. Yeah, it's a lot of people I think a lot of people potentially experience it, but don't have a venue to chat about it either, or to hear other people talking about it. But yeah, if you're interested, this is my dog, Pig or Panzer. You can follow him on Instagram. But that's why I say I like spending time with my dog. He's a big dog. He he's a big part of my life. Look at him. um, yeah, this one. Wait, why is it so small? I don't know. I think it's because I'm not logged in. Yeah, look at him. Yeah. Yeah, Rear Window Soda says, don't know if bringing belief into a discussion about depression is a good thing. It's a scientific fact that you can see, test, measure, and treat. Well, the reason I brought it up, I mean, and you may be talking about other people that were saying certain things, but the reason that I brought it up is because I think there will be certain people that come to the conversation about burnout, and they come to the conversation with, how are you, like, how are you even burnt out? Why don't you just stop being burnt out? And to me, the parallels are there with depression, because that's the mentality that some people have about depression. And I think, to me, linking them in terms of it being a mental health issue and being something that, like, you can't just not believe in because it's there, it's real, people experience it. Yeah. Yeah. They're invisible, which can be challenging for others to fully grasp. Yeah, it's a thing about the brain which we can't see. Yeah, and empathizing is difficult. Yeah, so that's why I bring those things up. But yeah, what's up, Drew? Took a boot camp from Denver. Oh, nice. Hope you're doing well. Gotta go, but still got a lot, getting a lot out of your content. Appreciate that, Drew. Have a good one. Thanks for dropping in. Can people starting to code get burnt out too? Well, absolutely. I think the other thing to consider is, if you're learning to code and you're stopping everything, or like you're spending a lot of your spare time learning to code, that could lead to burnout as well, especially if you're trying to hold down a job at the same time and you're trying to learn the code, and then you have the stresses of trying to find a new job. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think ultimately, to kind of like end out this discussion, my main advice is take breaks early and often, make it a habit before you burn out. Don't try to if you're feeling burnt out, it's too late. I think that's the main advice here. And then my main advice for resolving it is, you have to take care of yourself, take care of your body and your mind, eat good food, exercise if you can, and get good sleep too. Sleep helps with your mental ability to process things and such. Yeah. Yeah. And Acid Spark says, yeah, sitting there feeling lost and worthless is pretty brutal for those lucky enough to have not experienced it. Yeah, that's the crazy thing too, right? People that, yeah. Yeah, all the chats are purple, but the red outline says it comes from YouTube. Oh, nice, Chrome. What programming languages are recommended for backend? We use JavaScript and TypeScript here, but I also like C#. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the other, I think that's a whole other conversation, is I think we do use the term depressed too lightly. And I think too many people use it to describe how they're feeling, when like clinical depression and chronic depression is like a very serious thing. I do think it's possible for anyone to experience like depressive feelings and things like that, but being chronically depressed and clinically depressed is a very different thing. Yeah. I took a long break doing live streams. Well, I was burnt out from my job when I left. I think that's if I can talk about like my own situation. Like, we are now May, June, July, August. Yeah, a year and 4 months since I quit my job. And when I quit my job, the goal was to devote all of my time and efforts to working on Coding Garden, doing live streams, making tutorials, making courses and stuff like that. But I think the main issue was I was burnt out to begin with. So it was very hard to even get the motivation to like do the things I wanted to do. And very hard, like even when I tried things like the React Roots course, and if it didn't necessarily get the reception that I expected, or it didn't go the way that I wanted, I'm less motivated to try again. And I think all of that has to do with like me being burnt out. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Stony. Thank you for the 25 months. This is a thing. Appreciate you. Thanks for being here. But Griffin says, there's some great golden nuggets in these types of discussions. More people would benefit to hear them. Have I considered creating a separate YouTube channel? Well, I think I would use my main YouTube channel. It's really just a matter of editing this out. And I might do that. I shouldn't even be worried about, like, because this one conversation is probably close to 30, 45 minutes long. I probably shouldn't even worry about like, is it going to get views or whatever else. I think it's going to be valuable to at least one person out there. So cutting it out, uploading it is probably good enough. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that on the main channel. Can I explain React Native, iOS, and Android in a shared mono repo? I've never worked in a code base like that. Well, I guess technically, you might have some modules written in iOS and Android that you want to use in like React Native plugins or something like that. Yeah. Do you edit your videos? Yeah, so I do, but that's a whole other conversation though, because outsourcing my video editing is a hard thing to do because the person that edits them would need to be a programmer as well. They would need to be technical, like for the kind of editing that I need, right? If I did more planning up front and I knew what I was going to talk about and I had a script, an editor doesn't have to be technical. They literally just edit according to like the outline in the script, good to go. This conversation, for instance, I think most people would be able to edit it because it's not like programming related, but that's basically what I'm up against is I need a technical person to be my editor, which is why I edit my own stuff. Yeah. I just haven't had the time, but I might do that. All right, let's talk about TypeScript. But also let's take a break because I talked about taking breaks and I've just been talking for an hour now. So we're going to take a 3-minute break. We're all going to take a deep breath, remember why we're here, and then we'll talk about TypeScript. The last 2 years sure did fly by. They did, man. They did. Yeah. Twitch didn't like this message. Yeah. I mean, you can clip here on YouTube. I'll show you. Let me show you. On YouTube, click these 3 dots. They may be in a different place for you. Oh no, now it's a dedicated button. What? Did they change that? Oh no, in that view, it's a dedicated button. Otherwise, it's there. Yeah. Yeah, I already answered that, Luis. I've tried the older bun. I haven't tried the latest bun yet. All right, let's do a 5-minute break. Well, because I like honestly, these conversations are taxing on me. Like basically, like talking about all this stuff does take a lot out of me. So we're gonna take a 5-minute break, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk about why I use TypeScript and why you use TypeScript, and then also why you might not be using it. Why are you not using it? This is basically going to be a list of pros and cons of TypeScript when we come back in 5 minutes. So see you soon.
calling, been stalling, been falling, we go again. Timing so precious, a blessing, don't mess it up all again. Money, it coming, it going, it coming, it go again. Loving is true, it don't go here to stay, it go again.
Bumping into trouble like a rubble's where I came. See the flame shine bright, they were puzzled how I'm saved. I could never serve the passion or the fight or the man or for sight how I am. Ain't nobody asking, I'll be basking in my liberty, cause slavery is real. Doesn't mean the shackles gotta be revealed. Fighting with my pen, it's the closest thing to steal, and it's what they wanna steal. There's value in the word, gotta figure out the real. I'm juggling and wrestling thoughts in my mind. The influence was heavy, or the fault's even mine. Label still persuading like I'm needing a dime. Like my people ain't be dying over gold in the mines. It's funny, right? I'm still numb to the trauma. I couldn't tell if my joy was out of love or what would haunt me when I needed me a hug. That's the realest. Yeah, that's the closest thing to feeling. Yeah, it's the only thing revealing. Trying to get me closer to the Lord, cause maybe he can open up some doors while these words get to show you all my flaws. It's poetry and pain, blessing in the change, pictures I could paint. Yeah, it's poetry and pain, blessings in the chain, pictures I could paint. Yeah, it's poetry and pain, blessing in the chain, pictures I could paint. Yeah, it's poetry and pain, blessings in the chain, pictures I could paint.
No, I've been calling, been stalling, been falling, we go again. Timing so precious, a blessing, don't mess it up all again. Money, it coming, it going, it coming, it go again. Loving is true, it don't go here to stay, it go again.
Hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone. We had a chat about Burnout. Now we're going to talk about should you use TypeScript. If you're just joining us, this was our weekly discussion we had in the Discord. And so right now we're kind of on the point of if you are using TypeScript, why are you using it? And so we're going to talk about why I use TypeScript, and I'd also love to hear from you in the chat why you use TypeScript. I'm also going to pull up the messages that people sent in the Discord that kind of like add to the conversation. So let's see. So Brooke Zerker says, I use TypeScript in my day job's code bases. It is great for working on multiple projects and not needing to review how everything works to just jump in and fix something small. Yeah, I think that is one other reason why I use it is built-in documentation. Documentation like that. Yeah. There's so many times in like a large JavaScript project where if I leave that project for just a few days, or especially if I leave it for like a month or two, when I come back to it, a lot of times it's hard to get context for like where things are and how things work. But if you use TypeScript, you're essentially documenting your types and your things as you go. So the next time you come into the project, it's a lot easier to jump around because it's basically built in. And Brooksarker says, it also helps other developers know how to use a function just by looking at their dev tools. Yeah, I think this, to me, it all kind of comes back to editor support, right? And let's show an example of this. I'm just going to show in my listed project, which is a SvelteKit app, but it's a SvelteKit app that is using TypeScript. So for instance, I'm just going to pick a file. And the fact that on a given import, we have documentation that's overlaid right there, that's because of TypeScript or JS doc. But at the end of the day, it gets fed into the TypeScript language server. You can see that same thing here. And so this is what I mean by editor support. Like, I can just start typing and it will tell me what methods are available. Now, you technically can get that with JavaScript, but it's going to work best when you have TypeScript. And then especially, so let's say I try to call one of these other functions like subscribe, it's going to tell me exactly what the arguments should be. And so this is what we mean by editor support. And so like what Brooks is saying, it helps other developers know how to use a function just by looking at the dev tools. In a JavaScript project and in the world of JavaScript, typically you would have to jump out, right? Typically I'd have to go over here. If someone in my code base wrote this code, typically I'd have to go over here and then look at the actual source code to figure out what do I need to pass in. I'd need to like read it to try and understand, all right, like what are the types of those variables and stuff like that. You'll also notice that this is actually using JS doc. So there's no type annotations here, but the JS doc on top of it is giving it type annotation. So it's saying that value is of type T, which is a template type or like generic type. And then start is of type start stop notifier of T. Regardless, even though it's JS doc, it's still TypeScript. It still feeds into the types that are used over here. So yeah. What are we saying? Yeah, other developers don't have to read our code, and I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize about what it was like or what it's like to work in a large JavaScript code base. You do so much reading of other team members' code if there aren't types already written for it. So like if you want to call a function, you typically have to go to the source code, figure out, all right, how many arguments does it take? What are each of those things I'm supposed to pass in? And then you have to manually do it. With TypeScript, the editor will literally tell you this is what it takes in, and this is what you're missing, that kind of thing. BTRSL says, I learned TypeScript by watching your tutorials, and we also use TypeScript in the React Roots course. Yeah, TypeScript always seemed overkill for me, but the way you taught TypeScript changed my opinion. Well, glad to hear that, BTRSL. I think that's the other aspect of it is like I try to be pragmatic about it. You will find TypeScript developers that are more dogmatic. They're basically like everything should be TypeScript. JavaScript doesn't even exist. TypeScript is the only thing. I think that's a little too far. I don't know if people will go that far, but yeah, there are people that think that way. Like I am always about just enough TypeScript and just enough TypeScript to be useful. Like I think in general, my experience of being a programmer and developer is I want to work less. I don't want to work as hard. I don't want to have to think as much. And when you use TypeScript, I don't have to think as much because the editor helps me figure out how to use things and call things. Yeah. Default says, this is my favorite reason to use TypeScript. VS Code can be super dumb sometimes when it's just JavaScript. Yeah. BTRSL says, I use it to improve my coding experience. I believe the problem with TypeScript is that people use it unnecessarily complicated. Yeah. I think that's really one of its downfalls. And we can put that here is, we can say sometimes overcomplicated. We'll try to find some examples of that. For me, TypeScript is just a tool to improve my JS coding experience. Yes. And I think when you treat it that way, when you treat it as something that can make writing JavaScript more fun, I think it's easier to see the benefits of it. Yeah. Makes my project more readable overall, and I believe I support referring to it as adding TypeScript to my JavaScript project. Yeah. Yeah. What are my thoughts on Svelte and TurboStop using TypeScript? First, I don't know what TurboStop is. Second, Svelte still uses TypeScript definitions. They just don't use TypeScript in their code base. And I think this kind of gets to the point of sometimes overcomplicated and sometimes types are hard to express. And so these are some of the reasons that like Svelte stopped using TypeScript directly, but they are using JSDoc and they are still creating TypeScript definition files. And I think this also comes down to building, or like the reason people don't use it, if your project is a library that other people use and there are complex internal and generic types. That's why a lot of teams choose not to use TypeScript, but that doesn't mean they're not using JSDoc and they're not using TypeScript definition files. But yeah. Yeah, the age-old question, type versus interface, and which one to use. I always use type. Is it bad? We can use and for type and extends for interface. I would say nothing you do is bad. I think especially here's a hot take. I like do anything you want with TypeScript because it's just going to get stripped away whenever you run your code anyways. So is it bad? No. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're getting the right editor support that you expect, then your use of TypeScript is not bad. I think any time you have multiple ways of doing a thing, you're going to have people that have opinions on what's better for each. I think these days, the trend that I see is most people are using types, like using the keyword type instead of interface. I think if you come from an OOP background, like C# or Java, you probably lean more towards interface because it's more similar in C# and Java. But the type keyword can be used in similar ways. Yeah, TypeScript and meta frameworks are just great to work with. Type safety on your front end matching your back end and vice versa. Yeah, this is another point I'll get into is why am I using it? Type safety for working with web APIs, which I will expand on. Brian is saying, I don't naturally gravitate to TypeScript, but one benefit I've noticed with TypeScript is that it makes it a lot easier to generate code and test with large language models like GPT. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, so if the LLM has discovered the patterns in TypeScript code or typed code, it can be easier for it to figure out the right tests to write or like the right code to generate. I could see that, yeah. Yeah. Avoid silly mistakes and makes code reviews easy. Yeah. I think avoiding silly mistakes is a thing. Like, there have been so many times on stream where you see me using TypeScript, and all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, you're right, TypeScript. That you're right. That could happen. Or like something that I didn't think about. Silly/simple mistakes. Makes code reviews easy. I think that's relative. I think if you're reviewing a pull request that added a bunch of generic type functions and stuff like that, that's going to be a lot harder to review. But if you are reviewing a pull request that just has like some basic interfaces that have defined the types that they've created and stuff like that, that can make the code review easier because the code is easier to follow. I'll say this, like typed code is easier for others to follow. Yeah, I was gonna say as long as it's not generics, but I think that's the other thing that people like a reason why people might not like TypeScript is if they've had an experience where they had to dive deep into like generic types, or like things that are like very, very heavy TypeScript, that can be very complicated and convoluted. That can color their experience. That can give them a bad experience, and then they write it off for everything else. But I think it's really hard to argue the point that like an interface or a type definition of an object is bad. It's hard. I think it's hard to argue that point because it is generally good. It's generally good to type the objects that you're using and have interfaces for the objects that you're using, because I mean I need to pull up some code examples because there are so many times in a JavaScript code base where you're dealing with an object and you just either guess at what the properties are, or you have to go read the source code to figure out what properties you have access to. If there were a type or an interface for that object, You don't have to do that. That's less work for me because now that typer, that interface describes what properties on that object are available to me. I'm going to just put it this here, like generics and other type foo can be hard to read and write. And by what I mean by type foo is like anything involving like complex TypeScript types, I think is a reason why you wouldn't want to use TypeScript. Yeah. Is vanilla TypeScript a thing? I've never heard that term just because TypeScript is TypeScript. There is no, if you're not using TypeScript, you're using JavaScript. So yeah. Okay, let's keep reading some of these other answers. So Stefan says, I've sometimes used JavaScript in TypeScript project just for the autocomplete. And I think here we're talking about editor support, like being able to get auto-completion about what actually exists is great. Yeah. Oscar says, I have an old legacy app that cannot use TypeScript. JSDoc is really great to add type hints, but I use TypeScript for new projects. Yeah. And Griffin is saying, I'm not using TypeScript. I know only surface level stuff about TypeScript. And they're mentioning, I'm focused on finishing React and Next courses before giving TypeScript a try. Yeah, I think, why are you not using it? Like beginner / learning JavaScript. I do think you need to have a good grasp of JavaScript before diving into TypeScript. You don't have to be an expert in JavaScript, but to better understand the relationship of like what it even means to like add types to your code and stuff like that, I think you have to have worked with JavaScript itself. Yeah. Yeah. What's up, Kanyan? I got married back in October. Yeah, I didn't make a big deal out of it. But I think anybody that sees me using my hand and yeah, I'm married. I am married. And I do talk about my wife. Cool. Yeah, so that's it from these opinions that got shared in the Discord here. I'd love to hear in the chat anything else you all have to add. Like, what are some reasons you are using TypeScript? And honestly, while you do that, I'm going to bring up a JavaScript code base and tell you what I'm talking about here. Honestly, I think the inventory app. Yeah, so the inventory app is written in JavaScript. Nice, Habs Fun. Glad to hear it. Congrats to you too. You think you can easily learn TypeScript and not JavaScript? I think TypeScript makes JavaScript powerful. It does make JavaScript powerful, but it's important. So I think the thing about being, I think, a good programmer, and I think the path to eventually becoming an expert in any given language is really understanding what code is going to do before you actually run it. So, to that idea, being able to look at some TypeScript code and determining what is going to happen when you run that TypeScript code. And one of the aspects of that is all of the types get stripped away, and it's just going to be JavaScript code when that code is actually running. So TypeScript has nothing to do with the runtime. There is no TypeScript runtime, at least right now. Any TypeScript code you write is eventually going to be JavaScript in order for it to be run. Even if you talk about Bun or Dino, like they let you write TypeScript, but at the end of the day, they still have to transpile it into JavaScript before that code can be even run. So that's what I mean by I think you should learn JavaScript first, because I mean, like you're basically going to have to be learning them simultaneously. And I think this is the other aspect of being a beginner, is when you have a lot of disparate topics that are all kind of like intermixed together, it can be really hard to differentiate what's what. And then that makes it really hard to debug and really hard to like actually solve problems with it. So I think that's my main point here is if you're learning TypeScript at the same time as JavaScript, it can be confusing to understand where TypeScript comes into play and where JavaScript comes into play. Because this is the other aspect I think of having a good time with TypeScript, is knowing when you can ignore it, knowing when you can basically just say, all right, I'm not going to use TypeScript right here because I know what I'm doing and I know how JavaScript works and how the JavaScript engine is going to run this code and how it's going to be interpreted. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Hushu. So that's basically what I mean. Now, if you're someone that's trying to learn them both at the same time, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's going to be harder to do, and you potentially are going to have a harder time differentiating them and really understanding that at the end of the day, it's just JavaScript. Like the code that runs is JavaScript. So like TypeScript is literally just there as a developer tool. It has nothing to do with the actual code that's going to end up running. And if you don't understand that and you don't have a good mental model for that, it's going to be very hard to use TypeScript. Yeah. Where to start when porting a JavaScript app to TypeScript? I think one thing you can do is just change the name of a file. So let me catch up on chat, and then I'm going to show you an example of that in this JavaScript project that I'm talking about, or that I'll use to demonstrate. Yeah. If you look at my gear page, you can see links to all of the stuff I use, like keyboard and mouse and everything. Usually TypeScript frustration kicks in when I have to type errors. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yeah. But if you look at my gear page, this is the keyboard I'm using here. And then I use a vertical mouse like this. Here. All right. To my point of like objects being typed, let me show you a thing. So we have an API endpoint. It specifically has routes for addresses. So like addresses that are going to be stored in the database. All right. Now, here's what I mean by type support here. Right now, my editor is trying to help me, but this is a JavaScript project. I am getting back this addresses thing from this query, and it is the any type. Now, in this JavaScript code base, I know what's getting returned here. It's an array of objects that came back from the database. So if I wanted to do something like, I don't know, like map over it or something like that, let's say like updated addresses, I could do this .map. That's going to give me each individual address. And then I can do something with it, like address.visited is true. I don't know. We want to annotate it or update it in some way. But through all of this coding, I have to know what the types are. Like I have to know that this is an array. I have to know that I can add this property on here. And all of that is stored in my brain. It's not stored in the code base. And so when another developer comes along, they either have to talk to me or they have to look at my code base to figure out what's going on here, right? So if we go to this definition of address, so let's go to where this was defined. You can see actually that this is it's a model which actually comes from objection. So this query function and this where function are actually from the library itself. So we could go to the docs for objection. And the thing is, I think objection actually supports TypeScript these days. But if you go to the docs, we could look at the docs for a model and then see like the query examples of like find and where. But that's only going to help us with the library itself. That doesn't actually help us with the type that we're getting back from the database. So you can see some examples here of like model.query, etc. And you can see that I'm like, there is no query function here. This is all inherited from that base type. So yeah, we don't know what that type is. If I wanted to use the type, I think I could start introducing, I don't know if they have docs on using TypeScript. Yeah, so like technically this library uses JSON schema. And like that will actually give you back like a validation schema, but it still might not actually type it. But all of stay with me here, and also ask questions in the chat if you're not following. But basically, what I'm trying to say as well is like I don't even know what an address is in this code base. Like I don't know what properties an address has. Does it have a street address? Does it have a state, a country, a zip code? Like what does it have? The only way I'm going to know is by reading the code. And let's find where that is even defined in this case. I guess I know that because I used objection for this, I would be using connects. And that means that somewhere in the code, I have the connects code for creating this database table. So I would need to go in here probably to my migrations. I would need to find like my initial migration. And then I need to find where I defined the address table in my database. And this is where I did it. And so I can see that all of these properties exist on a address. And so now I can mentally know that these are the things that I'm able to use, right? I can say like address dot street address 1. This kind of thing. But all of this to say, there's no typings here. I can do literally anything I want, and the only time I'm going to know I did something wrong is when the code is actually running. Now, of course, I could write tests against this code, and all of that, but ultimately, like if this property didn't exist, or let's say, yeah, I mean, like technically, this line of code would even be a TypeScript error because that property visited doesn't actually exist on the type that is in the database. Like this code is still going to work. It's still going to run because it is JavaScript. At the end of the day, if you have an object, you can put properties on it. You can make those properties any type you want as well. But we don't have TypeScript support here. So now to show the contrast of that, to show like where TypeScript is helpful here, let's actually define some types. And I'm just going to do it in this file here. But let's do this. We will actually, here, let's do this. Let's, well, I was going to say we could define some JS doc, but that's going to be really hard to do because the type is actually coming from the library itself. Here's what I want to do. I want to define a type that represents an address that has all of these properties. So I'm actually just going to rename this to a TS file. And then we're going to define a type. So I'm going to have an interface called DB address. So this will describe what an address looks like inside of my database. And it's going to have all of these properties. Here we go. I got some editor foo. Like this. So this is an interface. It describes what an object will look like. It says street address is a string, street address 2 is a string, city is a string, zip code is a string, latitude. There are no doubles in JavaScript. There are just numbers. So we'd have to use number here. But this is how we can describe what we're going to be getting back from this specific query. And once I introduce types here, like ideally this method would actually like return the type. But what I can say is that this is actually going to give me back an array of database addresses. And then once I do that, now I get an error. Now TypeScript is like, hey, visited doesn't exist on that type. So what are you doing? And this is an error that's caught in my editor and potentially at compile time if I have certain errors turned on. But the other thing is now that I've defined that that's what each of these is going to do, now if I hover over it, you can see, oh, well, the type is DB address. And if I right click on it, I can go directly to that type definition, even if it was defined in like a separate file. And then when I'm actually writing the code, I get full completion as to these are the possible things that you can do. And then let's say I tried to do something wrong. Let's say I tried to put the wrong type in there. This would complain because it would say, hey, that's supposed to be a string. So number isn't assignable to string. So this is what I'm talking about when saying like in a JavaScript code base, you basically have to just hold all this information in your head. there in a JavaScript code base, the only way to tell the editor that this is what we're getting back from this function would be to use something like JSDoc, which in turn is actually like using like type definitions. So yeah, that's the benefits. And then if I don't have that type, JavaScript doesn't know it. Like it doesn't, and even TypeScript doesn't know either. Because you'll notice that like TypeScript is just calling this the any type. And with the any type, we can basically say, yeah, we can do anything we want. TypeScript won't allow us to do what JavaScript allows us to do. Exactly. But I think that is where knowing where, oh no, not that. Knowing when and why to ignore TypeScript, right? Let's say I did want to add this visited property. For one, I could just, I could ignore it. So I could do a TS ignore, and now TypeScript gets turned off for that one line. And this is basically me saying, hey, TypeScript, I actually do want to do that because, hey, this is JavaScript and I can add random properties in JavaScript. So I'm just let's ignore any sort of TypeScript error and kind of like do what we want. But so I think that's the other aspect of like using TypeScript effectively is like knowing when to not use it, or knowing when to say, hey, I actually do want to do this thing that I can do in JavaScript, and JavaScript won't complain about it. So TypeScript, stop caring for a second. So honestly, I think that would be a reason why I use it, is like you can incrementally adopt / turn off or ignore if it's wrong or in the way. Yeah, exactly, William Cameron. So I didn't call attention to that, but like now that I have introduced a TypeScript file here, I actually do need some kind of build process, because the TypeScript build process will literally rip out these types. So it's going to remove that, it's going to remove this, and at that point, I've got JavaScript code. So there's a build process that will literally compile the TypeScript code to remove the types, but also to show us any errors that might happen in the type. Yeah, and I think that's the other thing is like if I wanted this line of code to work, I could update the type. I could say, hey, visited is a property that is optional and will be a Boolean. But if I update the type, now TypeScript stops complaining. The other thing we can do is we can tell it that this type can also have anything inside of it. Like this. And then now TypeScript stops complaining because you basically defined a type that can literally do anything. Like this. That's what this little line of code is as well. So I think that's the other aspect of using TypeScript is like knowing when you should or shouldn't use this. Because if you do use this, you're actually going to lose a lot of the type benefits that you would get if you were using TypeScript. What's up, Igor? Welcome in. And Wiccan Joy, glad to see you. Why use interface over a type? It just comes down to preference. In this specific scenario, both a type and an interface can do exactly the same thing. Literally, all I have to do is change it to that. The code's going to work exactly the same way. There are scenarios where a type can do things that an interface can't do, and an interface can do things that a type can't do. But for this specific purpose, you can use either. And I would argue that like 70 to 80% of your TypeScript usage is just describing objects. So interface or type doesn't matter. I think the other thing you would do is also you would type the response type and request type and like the function types basically. I think another thing I can show here of like where type safety comes into play is like you're basically setting up a contract for your code where like you're setting it up front. You're saying, hey, this is what I'm going to be doing. So if I don't do that, yell at me. Or if another developer comes along and breaks it and doesn't do what I intended them to do, yell at them. Yeah, we'll add this back. We'll say visited is a Boolean like this. But right now, this res.json right here can literally accept anything. And it will not complain. But Express has types you can add. I think maybe I need to install these separately. Yeah, let me do that in this code base. I'm going to install types Express. And then I can go further in my type definitions because I can basically say that this method, this express method, should only ever return an array of addresses. And if it returns anything else, we should get a type error. And so now, I do believe I can add the generic type here. I need to reload my editor, I think. Why is this complaining? The keyword interface is reserved. I'm gonna disable my linter because if you want your linter to work with TypeScript, you also have to set that up. And I'm not gonna go through the whole process of like converting this project. So we're just going to disable ESLint. I guess if like, let's do this. Yeah, I already restarted it a couple of times. I'm just going to disable ESLint. I think it's conflicting with TypeScript, and I haven't configured ESLint to work with TypeScript. Yeah, I guess that's the other thing is I don't have a TypeScript config. You might be right, Hygart, but let's see. Okay, so I'm still getting type support here. I think yeah, I might need a TS file because otherwise it doesn't know where to find the types. All right, we're gonna we're gonna install TypeScript in this project. I'm afraid I can't let you do that. We're gonna init a TS config, and then let's hope that the TypeScript starts happening. Yeah, cool. Cool. The thing is, all of these should have their types though, because I installed types express. Should have been a dev dependency, but I am going to show you in a different project. Because basically what you can do once you have the types enabled for Express is you can also define the return type, and then that will... do I need the node types too? Let's try. The thing is, I didn't want to go through a whole setup of TypeScript for this thing. Let's see. Router is still the any type. Express is still the any type. I mean, I guess I can... Oh, you know, maybe because I'm not importing it, I could also type it here. I guess, yeah, I think that's the thing. So let's do import express from express. And then now I have the types. There we go. There we go. I've got the types now. So I think mixing require with TypeScript isn't a thing. But now that I do this, I can define a generic type that says, yeah, like what the path is going to be, and then I can also define the path, and then what the response body will be, and then what the request body will be. So yeah, so if I just says like the path is slash, and then the response body is going to be a DB address array like this. I thought. First of all, I guess I don't know what that first type should be. But now that I've told TypeScript, hey, this express handler is going to respond with an array of address, then it complains, right? It complains here. But if I actually respond with an array of address, then now TypeScript is happy. So this is the other aspect of like inline code documentation, is like I'm basically telling TypeScript up front, this is what I should do. And so if I don't do that, yell at me. Or if another developer comes along and tries to do something different, you should yell at them too. So yeah. Can I explain the difference between a TS and a D.TS file? A D.TS file is typically a TypeScript definition file. And it's typically used for defining like types that should exist across your whole code base. It doesn't have to be used that way. Because you can also technically just have a TypeScript file that only has types and interfaces inside of it. So yeah, the main place that I see the D file is when it's a TypeScript definition file, which is typically generated during the TypeScript compilation process. Because what will happen is to turn this into JavaScript, all the types get ripped out, but you can also generate a definition file so that way you still get good code completion in the generated JavaScript code. I feel like that's not a good answer. I'm going to keep moving, though. Let's just keep chatting. So these are all the reasons I'm using it. Good editor support, all that stuff. Let's talk about what are some benefits you've noticed of using TypeScript. I think we've kind of talked about them here. But I think that's kind of my main point is like in a large JavaScript code base, especially one where you're doing things like database lookups and API requests and all kinds of things that involve objects. Objects typically have a specific shape or a specific type. And if you don't have those documented, you have to keep all of that in your head. Like I was saying with that address type. So like because this thing didn't exist before I created it, for the developer implementing this request handler, they would have to have that type in their head, or they'd have to go look up in the code to see what properties existed on that specific thing. So that's a lot of mental load that you typically have to have in a JavaScript project that doesn't have types. Whereas when you start using TypeScript, you don't have to keep as much in your head. It's actually like written out. Can you implement type safety when you pass an object in middleware and the final response uses that object or variable? Yeah, so I don't know if the types in Express are that good, but you can basically override the type of the request that gets passed in here. And basically like give it context. So like you can define the type for like a user object that's going to exist on rec and different things like that. Yeah, what's up, TCG VSO CG? Hello, welcome in. Glad to see you. We don't talk about this. I'm still on Twitch. I'm on Twitch right now. Cool. All right, let's talk about this one because I really just want to hear from you in the chat. If you haven't started using TypeScript, what is stopping you from making the switch? So, like, let's say you've heard about all the good things about TypeScript and you've seen potentially some of the benefits. What is stopping you from even trying to use TypeScript? I think for me, early on, like this is slowly changed the more I do stuff. But early on, TypeScript gets in the way. I was especially feeling that a lot of what I do on stream, and this is specific to my use case, because I think most people that are writing code for a job. They're writing code on a team. They're writing code that needs to last a long time. It needs to have longevity because it's going to be worked on by other developers and it's going to potentially live past how long they're working at that specific job. But for me, for the types of things that I would build on stream, they don't have that type of longevity, and they don't need to be documented as well, because a lot of times the things that we build we'll just throw away and then build something new like a year later. And so for those use cases, like prototyping, rapid prototyping, TypeScript does feel like it gets in the way. It is more code to write. Basically, if you start using TypeScript, then you basically couldn't have this without defining a type for it. And defining this type takes time. Now, of course, we're going to argue that, hey, if you spend the time defining that type, you're going to spend less time trying to remember what that type was later on. But up front, it does require more of an upfront investment, and you are writing more code up front. Like, just plain and simple, when you use TypeScript, you're writing more code than JavaScript because you have to define your types, and that requires writing more code. And so typically, it's going to take longer before you can run that code because you have to write more code. Now, of course, that doesn't have to be the workflow, and I think that's one of the things you'll start to realize once you use more and more TypeScript is this idea of incrementally adopting or turning it off when you don't need it. Like, a lot of times, the way that I'll implement something is without TypeScript first. Like, I just want to make sure it works, and then once I know it works, then I'll go back and define the types. And so, like, sometimes that's just like the flow that I'll take, because that can be the other aspect that people get annoyed by, or that might bite them when they're trying to use TypeScript, is if they try to define all of that types up front and then the code doesn't work like they thought it would. Now they have to go back and like either remove or rewrite those types. So that's something to keep in mind, is like if you do it all up front, you potentially are going to have to rewrite it, and because you're doing it up front, you have more code to write. Yeah, you can still technically sub with Twitch Prime. Once you get used to TypeScript and has become normal to write types as you write your code, you will not go back to vanilla JS. Yeah, I think it's it especially goes to my point of, like, if you're writing code that is potentially going to outlive you in your current job position, TypeScript is going to make it better documented code. So you're kind of like doing future developers a favor if you write it with TypeScript. Do I still use Express for a new project, or switch to Nest.js? A few streams ago, I talked about different API options. If I had to build an API right now, I might do it with Zodios, or honestly, I think I would do it with Zodios. Here's my main thing. TS REST is another potential option, but TS REST is like very similar to TRPC. Zodios lets you define an API contract and then implement it using Express. So like the code that you write for Zodios looks exactly like an Express app, but it has full type completion without all of this. Basically, like the moment you define your contract, once you've defined your contract, the moment you are specifying a route that's tied to a specific path, now all of these types flow through. And so now the response type would have automatically flowed through, and also like the request type and everything else. So if I had to choose, I'd probably use Zodios, but I haven't built anything with Zodios yet. And then if I'm building something like with real time, I probably would use Feathers. They have a whole like schema thing where you define your types using Typebox, and then all of those types flow through both to your queries and your database, and also your request handlers that use those types. Yeah. In my first days, I hated TypeScript. A few weeks later, I couldn't do anything without TypeScript. Yeah, I think that's the other thing, is like there's an initial like learning curve and bump to get over. Yeah. America 2050 says, I still don't like how TypeScript slows you down in the most basic stuff possible. Use TypeScript for libraries. For my small projects, simple JavaScript is good enough. Yeah, and I think that's mainly what I'm kind of saying here, is like, for small one-off projects, I still don't use TypeScript. For quick prototyping, quick scripts, I still don't use TypeScript. I think one of the things about being a JavaScript developer is like, now I just solve every problem with JavaScript. Like if I need a shell script, I'll typically just write it with JavaScript, because JavaScript can access, like if you're running it as like a node.js process in the terminal, it can access the file system. It can do loops. It can even bring in other libraries and stuff like that. And for things like that, I typically won't use TypeScript. I typically will just just use JavaScript for like my simple one-off things, and I'm good to go. Yeah, how can I know which library I'm using is creating the dynamic query? I don't know what you mean by that, Francis. Yeah. Is Nest a good option? It's probably fine. I haven't used it myself, but I think Nest is also potentially lacking those typings. I think. I don't know. I mean, I guess it has types here. I don't know. I've heard of Elysia. I haven't used it though. Rooted user says, would an open API schema only be sufficient for building an API where the API is not JavaScript, and then you just fall back to TRPC or the equivalent instead? No, I would argue that for most applications you're building, you want it's the benefits of having a typed API that can be used by any kind of client, to me, like outweigh building something that's tied to a specific client. What do I mean by that? Right now we're building this app called Listed. We're building it with SvelteKit. And the way that I've coded these things so far is that everything is completely tied and integrated into this one full stack app, in that any view that gets rendered is server rendered, and there are database lookups like in the server side code for rendering that page. If I wanted to build a mobile app that accessed this like same backend service, right now I couldn't do that. I would basically have to rewrite an API from scratch to be able to integrate like a separate client, like a separate mobile app client or something like that. The thing is, I could write this and architect this in a way where I have API functions instead of doing everything like in a server rendered way. And that would make it so that it would be much easier to integrate like a different client or create a client in React, or to build a mobile app on Android or whatever else, if this had a complete API available. And so in my career and in my experience, almost every time I've built something, we've needed to have some other client that wasn't just the web client. Regardless of if it's like a mobile app or a desktop app or a shell script, or even like an integration with some third-party service, like some other service wants to start integrating with us now. And if it's completely server rendered, we basically have to write those endpoints from scratch to be able to integrate. Versus if you went API first, it's much easier to integrate across the board. All of that to say, you can use JavaScript to write an open API definition, and then there are libraries that can generate a client for any language or framework that can integrate with that backend in a type safe way. Whereas something like TRPC, you're kind of tied to like a mono repo or the same code base. Whereas with like OpenAPI, you don't necessarily have to be. I created an Nginx PHP server for Electron. Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. Yeah. Cool. What else do we want to talk about? Any other questions or comments about should you use TypeScript? Or if you want to talk about experiences of using TypeScript or anything like that. Let me know. I think my main point here, that like for most people that are hesitant to switch, I think if you understand this and you kind of adopt it as a mentality, you're going to have a much better time working with TypeScript. And that you can turn off TypeScript if it gets in your way. A lot of times you shouldn't write types first. You should not shouldn't. A lot of times it's a better development workflow if you just get the thing working first and then write the types after. I will say there are some things that the types need to be written first, but if you go in that opposite direction, especially if you're doing some kind of like iterative development, you're going to have a better time as well. Yeah. I would agree with that. America 2050. So setup is not always easy. I would say this is changing, especially with things like Bun or Dino that kind of just support TypeScript 0 config. But I mean, if you look at the amount of things we've had to customize in our listed app for TypeScript, especially because we're trying to use TypeScript with Svelte and Svelte Kit, our TS config is pretty intense. Like there are a lot of things in here that we had to figure out that yes, these are the properties we needed, and this is why we need them, and this is how we need to extend it in order to just get TypeScript to work the way that we want. And sometimes that can be cumbersome. Yeah. Yeah. My first TypeScript experience was with learning Angular, and it was awful. Yeah, I could see that, but I think the other aspect of that is like I think it's like misplaced aggression. It's like, do you not actually like TypeScript or do you not actually like Angular? So yeah, and that could have basically colored your experience of TypeScript because you were doing a thing you didn't like or didn't work well with. Yeah. King is saying, not TypeScript related, but often when I'm starting a new project, I encounter decision fatigue, like choosing packages or libraries, or decide to write solutions from scratch. I wish there was a batteries included framework. Yeah, I think there are some. I think the main issue is like, even though node.js has been around for like over 10 years at this point, the ecosystem compared to like the .NET ecosystem or even Java is still very young compared to some of those other platforms and languages. So that's why there still isn't like a de facto experience. And I guess it because it is like it's kind of been open source from the beginning. Like if you look at the .NET world, for any given thing, there's maybe 2 solutions at most, but a lot of times there's one specific thing that everyone uses. So you don't even have to make that decision. It's like if you're using .NET, you just use ASP.NET or you just use Entity Framework. So yeah, in the TypeScript and JavaScript world, that can definitely be an issue. Yeah. All right. That's it for today's discussion. Thank you everyone for participating. If you have opinions that did not get voiced here, throw them in the YouTube comments. Also, join our Discord. You can throw your opinions in here. Also, watch the live stream. We're typically going to do this stream every Monday or Tuesday where we review the previous week's discussion. Yeah, we talked about this earlier, but depending on where you get your information on YouTube or Twitter or wherever else, a lot of times it's very one-sided. And we're trying to have a conversation here. I'm giving you my opinions and perspective on this and my experiences, but also there are many people watching with many different perspectives and experiences that are great to hear from because it makes it easier for you to potentially identify with one of those experiences or whatever else, rather than just hearing it from the same person or echoed in their comments because it's like confirmation bias and stuff like that. So that's that. Thank you for watching. Give us one good thing and one bad thing TypeScript has. I don't know how long you've been watching Valk, but I think I gave quite a few. Like here's the good things, here's the bad things. Yeah. Philistout says, I'm hesitant in learning TypeScript because it looks like it bloats up a code base and gives me an eye. Now I'm hearing most people are starting to drop it. But that's the thing is most people aren't starting to drop it. That's not the case. Like Svelte and Svelte Kit didn't drop TypeScript. They stopped trying to define complex types internally with TypeScript. They still use JSDoc. They still use TypeScript definitions. That Turbo thing just has one of the maintainer. I don't even know who they are, but whoever was the maintainer or creator or contributor to one of those things has a really large Twitter following. So whatever they say gets amplified. People aren't dropping it. I think that's the main thing. It's like people are not dropping TypeScript. Like if we have a reasoned discussion about why to use it versus not using it, the people that stop using it have a very specific reason, and I think they typically fall into library creators that are where it's very hard to define complex generic types and very convoluted. I think that's the main reason people are dropping TypeScript. Yeah. Can I suggest adding take-home assignments in the Discord? That could be fun. It's a bit harder to come up with projects like that. But I do kind of want to do that. Like, instead of just like a code kata or a CSS battle, it could be fun to say, go build this specific kind of front end, and then we get to review everyone's. That could be fun. But I'll have to come up with some. Yeah. What do I say about Bun? It's a thing. I still don't think it's ready. I still think it's overhyped, but it's a thing. It's a thing. And I'm not done live streaming. I think next up we're gonna do some code katas, but I am gonna take a break. I feel like today, I don't know what it is. I mean, I think it's because when I talk so much, I get I lose energy quickly. Not quickly, but like talking for 2 hours straight takes a lot out of me. So I need to take a break. I'm gonna take another 5-minute break. And then we come back. When we come back, we are going to do 3 code katas. These right here. I'll link them in the chat if you want to start working on them. We've got this 8Q, this 7Q, and this 6Q. Yeah. The thing is, Fresh Spots is written in Fresh, which only runs in Dino. I don't think it would run in Bun. Okay, but these are the 3 katas we're gonna solve when I get back. What I'm gonna do, which is different than usually what I do with code katas, is I'm going to solve them in the first way that comes to mind. I'm not going to think about multiple ways. I'm just going to think about, all right, what's the most intuitive way to solve this in my mind? And then after you see my solution, we're going to review everyone else's solution, because we had quite a few people that all solved all 3 of these questions. So it'll be fun to look at their solutions as well. Oh, thank you, Stony. I appreciate that. All right, so that's number 2. And then the third one is encrypt this here. So if you want to get started on those, we can look at your solutions too. But when we come back, I'm going to start on this one. And we'll go from there. But thanks everyone for watching so far. Thanks for everyone that participated in the chat about Burnout and also the chat about TypeScript. If you missed those conversations, feel free to rewind the stream while we're on break. But when we come back, we're going to write some code. So I will see you all in, I changed it, 7 minutes. I'll see you all in 7 minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Rooted User asks, your studio is massive. Has it always been that big? I mean, I've been here since 2019. I've been in this studio since 2019. Um, I'm in my basement right now. It's been in various parts of my basement, but yeah, that's it. You can see I have a backwards desk. Big blue screen. I mean, I've always had a blue screen that's about this size. This is like slightly extended on both sides because I put like this blue wallpaper stuff. But pretty much, yeah. All right. Let's write some code. So if you're just joining us, we are going to do this 8Q right now. It's called removing elements. Link is in the YouTube chat, that very first one. And then if you're just joining us over here on Twitch, check out that link there. Let's go. So it says, take an array and remove every second element from the array. Always keep the first element and start removing the next element. None of the arrays will be empty, so you don't have to worry about that. So my initial gut reaction here is to use a filter and look at the index in the array. And if it is an odd index, remove it. But if it's even, keep it. Because that would, if it's 0 or odd, or 0 or even, keep it. Because if it's 0, keep it. If it's 1, remove it. If it's 2, keep it. If it's 3, remove it. So if the index is even or 0, keep it. That's what I want to do. And I'm just going to use a filter for that. So I'm going to say array.filter. Filter gives us access to the element and then also the index. And in our case, we're just going to use the index of the element. So we'll say if index is 0 or the index is odd. So index mod 2 is 0. So if it's 0 or even, keep it. So in this case, we return true. But if it's not, we don't keep it. So this is how I would solve this. Let's see if I got it right. 0 is even. Let's see. So I don't even need that check. All right. Yeah. So it's as simple as that. So basically, filter it to only give me the elements who have an even index. That's my solution. Now, there's a lot of other ways to do this. Especially, like, you don't have to use the filter method. You could use just like a for loop or a for each, but let's go to the Discord to see how other people solved it. I'm curious. Let's see. All right, that's the CSS one. All right, so Hushu did it. They did the same thing that I did. So if the index is even, remove it, and they did a filter. Let's see who else. So Captain did it in C++. So this will be interesting to look at. They have a vector of integers. Remove value. I need syntax highlighting. I'm gonna pull this into my editor, just so I can get some syntax highlighting. Oh yeah, I'll also push up these notes that I took earlier. So on the topic of should you use TypeScript, I'll push this up to GitHub. Yeah. So if you're curious about the notes that I took earlier today when we were talking about TypeScript, those are all here. Yeah, the camera is like wide angle and like in the corner, so it probably makes it look bigger. All right, I'm gonna close that out, and we're gonna go into the weekly challenge. I wanted to grab this problem, and then, 'cause install the C++ language so I get formatting and highlighting. Okay. We have a function that returns a vector of integers. A vector is a list. So this is like a list of numbers. Or you can think of it like an array of numbers. Arrays are not technically lists, but arrays in JavaScript are kind of like lists because we can push values and remove values very easily. But this says, given a list of integers. Wait, why does it get both? It's taking in integers and values? What? Oh. I think they solved a different problem. Honestly, I think they did. I think they solved a problem. Given one list and a list of things to remove, return a new list that doesn't include the things in the second list. That's what they implemented. Which is fine. That's totally fine. But they solved the wrong problem. That's why I was like, why do you have two lists? But that's basically what they're doing. So they're first building up a map of what values we want to keep. That's why they're looking at values. And then they iterate over this list to see if is it in the map. If it's in the map, then push it into the answer. But they solved a different problem. Ultimately, you just want to remove the even indices. So let's see. Yeah, so Disco Bandit also did it with a filter. Let's see who else. Jasper didn't use a filter. Good. I wanted to see someone not use a filter just so you all can look at the solution that doesn't use a filter, especially if you're new to JavaScript. But this is basically does the same thing as a filter, except what's nice about not using filter is with a for loop, you're in control of how to increment the index. So they literally just increment by 2. So they have a new list that they initialize to empty. They iterate from 0 up to the end, but on every iteration, they increment by 2 instead of 1. And that makes it so that it becomes 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. And they push that result into the array, the result array. So yeah, I like that answer. Good job. All right, how did they do it? Again, they did it with a filter. Limodes did it in Scala. So we take the list. Scala has a zip with index function on lists. And then they have pattern matching. So if the index mod 2 is 0, so if the index is even, that's the ones we want, and then we zip those back up into a new list. Fascinating. All right, Fat Child did it. Fascinating. They did it with Python. I didn't know Python has this, but apparently this is syntax for taking values from the list that only have an even index. That's fascinating. And then Shahan did it with a filter in JavaScript. See, Mr. American Mike also used a filter. You can see here that filter seems to be like the de facto solution for a lot of JavaScript developers. That's the Python slice syntax. But we're saying, does this say slice every other index or something? Like, how does it know? Okay, last argument to slice is the increment. I see. So slice based on this increment. Oh. So if you did a 1, it would just create a copy of the array. If you did a 3, it would get every third element. That's fascinating. I see. All right. Let's see. Did Jotaro come up with... Yeah, they came up with the same solution. Cool. Mark Boots did it with a filter. Gordster did it with a filter. Raccoon did it with a filter. Great. I am going to do it with a reduce because nobody did that. So let's actually turn this into a reduce. So here's what we want to do. We want to return array.reduce. All right, step 1. Now, what is our accumulator for this reduce? We are accumulating into a new array of values. So our function here, the accumulator, is the result. And then what is the initial value of that accumulator? Empty array, just like this. And then inside the reduce, we also get access to the item and the index. We specifically just need access to the index. And so the accumulator starts off as an empty array, and it's going to get passed in here. So on every iteration, we're returning that array. But on certain iterations, we're going to change it. So on certain iterations, we'll just say if index mod2 is 0, then well, we won't even return. We'll just say result.push item, like that. So if we're at an even index, push the current value in, current item in, return the result. Yeah. Well, you could call this ACC, but that's just short for accumulator. I like to name it something useful. So that's why I would call this result, or we call this like array with removed, something like that. But yeah, ACC is short for accumulator because we're accumulating that result. Maybe a solution with actually slicing it out. Yeah, the thing is, it gets tricky. We could do it with a while loop. I like that. Let's do a remove it from the array, or like modify it in place, basically. Why a filter function instead of directly filtering the data? What do you mean by that? Is there a way to do this in the most convoluted and complicated way possible? Probably. I don't know if we'll get into that, though. I prefer loops over filter and reduce, fewer stack frames. Yeah, like, because technically this function keeps getting pushed and popped from the function call stack. It's true. It's true. Let's think of, though, how can we solve this by modifying the array? So in every solution we've seen so far, they create a new array as the result. But it's possible to modify the input array. How would we do that? I think we have to do it with a while loop, because anytime you use a for loop and the length of the array is changing, there's issues. But basically, because we want to remove half of them, I'm going to say the initial length, we're going to store that in array.length. And then we'll say while the current length is less than initial length divided by 2, or is greater than initial length divided by 2. So we want to keep iterating until the thing we've created is half the length of the original. And I guess, honestly, if we iterate from the back, that could help. I don't know. It's going to be tricky because we're going to need like a current index. I misspelled the result var name. Oh, you're right. But I also renamed it. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, if we do a for loop, we could determine in like iterating backwards each one, but I don't even know how we're gonna do this. Okay, so we could do the even index thing. But the thing is, can we? And we can't, because the index is gonna change every time. Actually, let's have a variable that we keep toggling back and forth. Keep, not keep. Keep, not keep. That's the way to go. That's the way to go. And then we have a, but then we need some kind of pointer? So every time we increment the index as well. And then we'll say if not keep, then we'll say array dot splice. Splice lets you remove from the array. Want to remove at the current index. And we want to remove one of them. But if we removed at that index, Now we need to decrement the index because it just got removed. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. The index changes, and when we remove it, we now need to decrement. I mean, is this the solution? I don't like it. I'm gonna try to run it. Yeah, but the issue is this won't work because the index changes when the length of the array changes. So like if you try running this code, because the length of the array changes on every iteration, you're splicing out the wrong index. It is ugly, but let's see if it works. Is it gonna work? No, I got an infinite loop. I have infinite looped it. Oh, Wucha, well, for these solutions on Code Wars, it has to be inside of a function because they need to be able to call your function in the test. That's the main reason. I think that's what you're asking. Well, index is less than array.length minus 2. Right? Maybe? Math.floor? Or math.ceiling? Less than or equal to? I feel like less than or equal to would make it go longer. Oh. Oh. Okay, so this is the solution then. Well, the thing is, we only decrement if we removed, but we increment on every iteration. That's why I have those two lines of code. This works. Apparently this works. And what it does, it actually modifies the input array instead of creating a new one. So American 2050, you were saying your index is always 0 or 1 or -1 and 0. It shouldn't be though. So it starts off with 0 and then it's not going to decrement, so it becomes 1. And then when it's 1, we decrement it to 0 and then increment it to 1. But then we don't keep it, so then it becomes 2. Like, but the fact that this if statement is only running on certain iterations is why it actually does increase. It's not just 0 and 1. Yeah. Yeah. So you don't have to create a new array, but instead keep the same. Yeah, so basically this solution modifies the input array instead of creating a new one. So it basically is removing it from the original array, which sometimes that's maybe what you want to do. It technically is saving on memory because we're not creating a new array. But the solution, as you can see, is much more convoluted. There's probably an easier solution. I can't think of it, though. But yeah. All right, let's keep moving. Let's move on to the 7Q. Yeah. But like I said, this code isn't going to work. I guess if you go from the end, it does work. Right? Maybe? I don't know. It does work? All right. I think going from the end works. It would be saner to determine what to do with the index based. Would it be saner to determine what to do with the index based off if we're keeping a value or not. Maybe. So, like, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna move on because, yeah. Well, to spliced returns a copy. That returns a copy of the array. All right, let's do this next one. So this is a 7Q. If you want to give it a try, there's the link. Also, feel free to mute the stream while you're working on it and then come back to see our solution. But here we go. Given a sequence of numbers, find the largest pair sum in the sequence. So for example, we have this array of values, and the largest pair sum is 23 and 19. And then with this array of values, the largest pair sum is 99 and 23. What's up, Greg? Welcome in. Good afternoon. All right, let's do it. I'm going to write my code in VS Code because this... There's a simple-ish way to do this. There's a simple way to do this in terms of reading the code, which would be sort the array of numbers and then just grab the last two or the first two, depending on how you sorted it, and add those two together. But it's also possible to not use sort. I think, like, technically you could use a nested loop where you add one number with every other number and then find the largest pair there. So that's what I'm going to do. I like that solution better. So we'll have the largest sum. We need to initialize it to some value. So actually I'm going to do negative infinity. Is that a... Can I do that? Infinity. So the largest sum is now the smallest possible value. And then for every value, we will add it to every other value. So, yeah, I think the issue with this though is, well, actually we'll look at the index. We'll have index A and index B. And we don't want to add it to itself. That's the main reason the main reason I'm including the index here is we don't add them together if it's the same value. So I'll say if index A does not equal index B, then we will try to add them together. So we'll say if value A plus value B is greater than the largest sum, we overwrite it. I'm going to put it in a variable so I don't have to do it twice. So if that sum is greater than the largest sum, then we'll say the largest sum is equal to that sum. And then we return the largest sum at the end of it all. Like that. This should work. It technically, like, anytime you see a nested loop, that's going to be n squared, right? So like whoever in terms of big O, like the length of the array has to perform length of the array operation. So it's n times n, which is n squared. But I think I prefer that to just like using the built-in sort method. Like this should work. Yeah. Why not do it in a single loop? Can you? You have to add one value to every other value, so you always need a second loop. Could you use two infinities in a single loop? I guess that's the no. I think yes. Okay, let's go down that path. If we find the two largest values in the list, we can do that in a single loop. You're totally right. Let's do it. But I didn't come up with that answer. I had to be I had to be told that it's a possibility to think that I could actually do it. So this isn't my answer. This is, we're in an interview, and the interviewer was like, well, could you do it? It can be done in a single loop. How would you do it in a single loop? But here's how, yeah, we can do it in a single loop. Let's do, let largest number equals negative infinity. And then we have the second largest number. And actually, we're not even going to use infinity. We're going to use the array itself. So we'll say numbers at 0. So grab the first one. If the first one is greater than the second one, then we want the first one. Otherwise, we want the second one. And then if largest number is equal to numbers at 0, then the second largest number is going to be numbers at 1. Otherwise, it's going to be numbers at 0. So that gives us the largest number and the second largest number. Then we want to look at every other number in the array and overwrite largest number or second largest number. So I'll have a for loop that goes from index 2 to the end, because we'll skip over the first two, because of the first two, we've already determined which one's the largest and which one's the second largest. So we will say, if we'll have a current number variable. That's going to be numbers at I. If the current number is greater than the largest number, then the largest number, the second largest number equals the largest number, and the largest number equals the current number. Else, if the current number is greater than the second largest number, then we do the same thing again. So we'll say second largest number equals current. No, that's all we have to do. We only have to overwrite that one. Done. And then at the end of it all, we return the largest number plus the second largest number. That's my solution, and I'm sticking to it. Here we go. Nice. First try. Nice. So yeah, this solves it in a single loop. This is probably the most performant solution, because instead of adding every number to every other number, we do in one pass find the second largest and the largest. Yeah. Now, I have a feeling people in the Discord did implement it with sort, because that's going to be probably the easiest one to read, where it's like sort the array, grab the two largest, add them together. The issue, I think, with that is that you, just by looking at it, it looks like it's not nested loops. It looks simple, but the sort function is hiding complexity, right? It's actually hiding, like this. This is hiding the fact that sort has to do lots of comparisons in order to make the sort actually work, and it has to do some shifting of things to make a sorted array. So, while this is easy to look at, probably not the most performant. Yeah, and then like this is the destructuring one that FKing is mentioning. It's like you sort it, and if you do B minus A, you're going to end up with greatest to least. And so the first two values in that sorted array become the result there. All right, but let's see how people did it in exactly your solution. Yeah, let's see how people did it in the Discord. All right, here we go. Hushu, sort, grab two. Easy. Number 2 in Python, sort it, grab the last two. Easy. It's interesting to note, though, and the sort function in Python just works. Like you don't have to pass it a comparison function like you do in JavaScript, which is nice. EasyLight is saying I would be interested how much faster the one loop is against the sort. I think for cases like this, it's inconsequential, like milliseconds, literally milliseconds, just because the arrays that we're sorting are so small. But for large arrays, this is definitely going to be faster because it doesn't have to compare it to every other value. Yeah, Python sort function just works. All right, Disco Bandit. Oh, nice. They did the largest and second largest. Very good. They initialized it to negative infinity. Which is fine. The reason I like to not do that, well, if you want to use for each, you have to do that. Because otherwise you have you're not already accounting for the first and second values. But if you just account for the first and second values outside of the for loop, and then start the for loop there, then you don't have to do infinity. Cool. Comments. My instinct was to use sort to sort the array in descending order, return the first two elements. Doing that would make for easy to read code, but it seems unnecessary. I think the final product has good performance, only one iteration over the array, and is still easy to read. I could agree with that. I will say, like, it's not that easy to read. Like, it is a lot more code, is the thing. Like, if we're thinking about another developer that comes along and looks at this solution, they still have to read the code and kind of like run over it in their head to understand it. Whereas if you look at this, sorting in your head is like an instant operation. Like, you don't actually have to sort in your head to imagine that the input is now sorted. And if you can imagine that the input is now sorted, you know that you can just grab the first two values because those are going to be the largest if you sorted it greatest to least. So it's like, I would say this is still technically easier to read and easier to reason about. I think the only reason we would do this is purely for performance. And also showing that you can. I think in a way, this is proving that I am a programmer. Like, I'm not just a pattern matcher. I'm not just a copy paste Stack Overflow solutions coder. Given some problem involving lists, can solve that problem efficiently without using any built-in methods. This is what this proves. And that's why interviewers might want to see a solution like this, is like, they don't care if you know how the sort function works. They care, can you program? Like, can you write loops? Can you reason? That kind of thing. So yeah, I guess it depends on context too. All right, Craigium did it with a sort, a slice, and a reduce. Fascinating. Yeah, they show if you can work out your methods, and I think that's kind of what I mean of like, a lot of devs might have just typed this question into Stack Overflow, and then copy pasted the answer that did the sort here. And a lot of devs might not be able to write this function from scratch. Like, I would argue that you should be able to write this function from scratch, like without any resources. Given the problem of finding the two largest numbers in an array, you should be able to write it like this in a single iteration. That's my argument. If you want to call yourself a programmer, you should be able to write this from scratch. And I don't think I'm doing any sort of gatekeeping there. I'm saying, like, a real programmer can take a problem statement and solve it kind of like from first principles. I don't know if this is even considered first principles, but like, we're just using loops, conditionals, and list access, right? That's what I'm saying. I don't know. What am I saying? I don't know. Maybe I am gatekeeping, but this is a fun solution because in order to chain it, they sort it, grab the last two, and then reduce it into the sum, which is pretty fun. All right, and then Limeoats did this in Julia. Yeah, they did a nested loop. So 2 nested loops, make sure they don't equal each other, and then grab the max of the 2. Nice. Yeah, it depends on the task. I agree with that. Here, is it done in Python? Yep, so sort it, grab the first 2, add them together. Sort it, grab the last 2, add them together. Sort it, add them. Sort it. This is fascinating. So in Python, they have heap queue. It's like heap sort. and then grab the largest automatically? That's fascinating. All right, and then Mark sorted it, add them together. Same thing. It looks like Raccoon did what we just did. So find the two largest, then add them together. Awesome. All right. I always hated 4H because it caused a bug in my company. What kind of bug did it cause? It has its place. 4H has its place. 4H will not bubble up any errors to your catch call. Oh, yeah. I mean, I knew that. But I guess you have to know that to know. That will actually... No, it will. I think if you potentially have like a nested await or something like that, that's where you could run into issues. But I'm pretty sure... I mean, let's test it. I'm pretty sure if we... No way. No way. Try it. I have to know this, right? I could be completely wrong. Try it and see. Yeah, look at that. We are here. Yeah, so this inside the 4H does work, but if you make this an async method, well, yeah, I'm explicitly throwing, but check this out. Some other function that throws an error. This will still work. I'll bet money on it. I'll bet money on this. How much money? I don't know, but now we've indirected it, right? So for each calls this function, which then throws the error. Does it make it to this catch? I would wager $5 that it does. It does. But here is where it can go wrong. Is if you make this an async function, it's not going to catch it. Really? Oh, it's not making it to the try catch. It's not. It's showing that an error was thrown. Well, even if we put async on here, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so even if we put async, we're not going to see this "we are here" log. See? It's thrown and it's logged, but it doesn't actually make it to the catch, and that's the main issue, is that it's not making it to the catch. But I'm guessing, Hugo Das, I think this is the issue that you ran into, is like probably like an async on a for each, which you shouldn't be doing to begin with. Like you should probably do a map, and then you should await that. And then if you do that, it is going to make it to the catch. Like that. Yeah. But that's a deeper issue, though. That's a misusing for each and not using the await keyword. I don't know. That's more of an async issue, but I get you. I get why. The thing is, I think it's a good argument, because if you were to write the same code with a for loop, would you end up with the same result? Oh, you're right. Await isn't defined. We need to make it an async function. But I think the argument could be made. Oh Oh, you're right. We do need a promise.all. We do. Yeah. So it's not making it to the try catch. If I want to make it to the try catch, I need to promise all this map. Yeah, you're totally right. Now we are here. Yeah, I would argue more that's async.js, but I would also argue that, yeah, like if it was easier to spot the error in a for loop versus a for each, then that could lend you to doing that, to using that over the other. All right, let's keep moving. Our last one is encrypt this. I've been here for another hour, so I'm gonna take another 5-minute break. I'm gonna take a 5-minute break and then 7-minute break. I'm gonna take a 7-minute break, and then when I come back, we're gonna do encrypt this, which is given some string, we return the encrypted version using some sequence of steps. If you want to give this one a try, check it out there. I'll be back in 7 minutes to work on this solution and then also show you some of the solutions from the community. Yeah. You can post it here. Yeah, feel free, Socrates. I don't know if YouTube chat will support it. I think they have like a 200 character limit. But also, if you share it in the Discord, I will look at your solution. Did you come up with like a really convoluted one? Weren't you the one that asked that? But yeah, I'll be back in 7 minutes time. Enjoy this music. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. We're gonna write some code. Yeah, Socrates is mentioning they couldn't find the place in the Discord. I'll show you really quick. In the Discord, you'll have to select channels and roles, and then make sure you click this general discussion channels, because then under and then there's a whole set of things you have to do to even get into the Discord. And then you'll get the role, and then after that you can go into it's actually very convoluted to get into our Discord. But from there, weekly challenge is under the discussion section. Yeah. And yeah, you'll only be able to see that as long as you get the role and send your introduction and everything. All right, but the next one that we're about to solve is going to be a 6Q. It's called encrypt this. Yeah, all the commands should work in the YouTube chat. Yeah, and this is how you play the drop game. If you say drop me, it will drop your avatar from the sky. It takes a second because there's a bit of a delay, but yeah, it'll drop your avatar, and then if it lands in the garden, you'll get your name on the screen. But all right, let's do this one, encrypt this. So you want to create secret messages which can be deciphered by decipher this. Here are the conditions. Your message is a string containing space-separated words. You need to encrypt each word in the message using the following rules. The first letter must be converted to an ASCII code. The second letter must be switched with the last letter. Keep it simple. There are no special characters in the input. Let's do it. Here we go. I will also write this one locally so we can make the code real big. Keep going. Okay. In this case, they gave us our steps here. Our steps are kind of just implement what they've said to do. They basically have given us the pseudocode for our encryption, and then we go from there. So your message is a string containing space-separated words. To encrypt each word in the message. So I think to encrypt each word, that means we're going to have to split the sentence on spaces. So we can do something like words is a text.split on spaces. So now this gives us all of the words that we now need to encrypt. And so encrypt each word using the following rules. And so if we need to encrypt each word, then that means we can map over the array of words to give an array of encrypted words. So that's, so we want to map to go from this array to a new array. And so inside this function, we will have the encrypt word function. And actually I'll write this separately as a separate function. And then, we'll implement encrypt word, but then after we've encrypted each word, we can join the whole thing back together, or, join it all back together on spaces, like that. And so now we need a function encrypt word, and it needs to do this. So using the following rules. The first letter must be converted to its ASCII code. So we'll say first. So we'll say, yeah, first code. We'll say word at 0. So strings in JavaScript, you can use bracket notation to grab the this character at that index. So that's going to grab the first letter. And then we want the ASCII code, and this will do that. So this will give us the first letter and then get the character. Actually, I don't even need to do at 0. I can just do this. So grab the word, get the character code at index 0, and that should give us back that. The second letter must be switched with the last letter. So we'll say second letter is going to be word at index 1, and the last letter is going to be word at index word.length -1. So that gives us the last letter. And then we need to combine all of those together. So basically we need the word minus the first, second, and last character. So that we should do a substring. So if we do a substring, start at 2, because we want to skip the first 2. Oh, what just happened? And then we want to go all the way till word.length -1. So we want to skip the last one. And so that's going to be the intersection, and then we can just combine it all together. So we can grab the code plus the last letter, and then it ends with the second letter. Done. Now, the only place I think I might have gotten this wrong is the substring. So I may need to do word length -2 instead of 1. But let's see if this works. Yeah. First letter must be converted to its ASCII code. The second letter must be switched with the last letter. Yeah, I think we've done it. We didn't yet. So 65 a undefined to equal 65. Oh. We have to look at the length of the string. So yeah, so let about 1 letter or 2 letter words. That's what they're testing. I will say this, if you're new to Code Wars, the harder they get, the more cases they test for. So in this case, they're not giving us strings that are at least length 2. Yeah, so if test fail. Yeah, so basically if the word length is if word.length is 1, we only return the code. If the word length is 2, what do we do? We just return that with the second letter. Like that. I believe this is the logic that we needed. We have to account for if the word length is 1 or length 2. If the word length is 3, then we have the same logic as before because we do have a second and last letter. Here we go. Nice. All right, I've done it. let's look at the solutions in the Discord. We'll also look at Socrates' solution from this last one here. But that was my solution. And I think where this might be helpful for you is to see how I broke down the problem. Because this is we solved this and we had to break it down into multiple smaller problems to solve. The first problem to solve is splitting it into an array of words on a space. That's like step one. Second problem is encrypt each individual word. Third problem, join all those encrypted words back together. Fourth problem, account for if the length is varying, is smaller than 3. So cool. All right, let's look at I think, is this the convoluted solution? Yeah. The title, the most convoluted and complicated way to sort an array based on an even index. But first, I'll answer the Flox's question. Why isn't it substring length -2? Because the substring function is non-inclusive, meaning the second argument you pass to substring, that value will not be included in the substring that's created. And the only way you'll know that is by looking up the definition of substring. We can look it up on MDN right now, but because the code worked, that's what we can intuit from that. Is the second one is non-inclusive. Or if I tell you, yeah, I mean, but like I said, like I didn't know. I still had to test it. Yeah. So, and you can, it says it right here. The index of the first character to exclude from the return substring. So if we're saying the first character we want to exclude is word length -1, then that says exclude the last character. That's why it's that. No, so it's still index. I think if you want to use number of characters, there's another function. Is it sub? Wait, sub and substr are no longer supported? What? What? Really? There's no way. Yeah, so substr, not substr, maybe that's why it's deprecated because it's confusing, but substr accepts the number of characters to extract instead of the end index. Whereas substring, well, you pass in the index that you want to end on. I guess sub isn't even a thing. Slice is another one we could use because slice will take a section of the string. So I think the thing about slice is it can also take a negative index, whereas substring does not take a negative index. Cool. And I guess to get meta about this, these are things that I don't think I would expect somebody to be able to rattle off in an interview. Like if somebody in an interview asked me, what's the difference between substring and slice? I would say I would need to look that up, and I'm not going to commit that to memory. So I'm not calling encrypt word. The tests are calling encrypt word. So, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So, basically when you do this, it's the same thing as doing this. Like this. Yeah. So, these two are one and the same. Because, we're passing a function reference. So, but if we didn't pass the function reference, we would need to pass it a function that accepts the word and then passes that word into encrypt word. But this does the same thing because we're literally passing it this function to map. And so this is the function that's going to be called by map for us. Yeah. A video on deprecated JavaScript functions. That could be fun. It also seems daunting. There's a lot of deprecated stuff. Yeah, there's hundreds. All of these that have the delete symbol on them. String.small? What the heck is this? What the heck is this? No way. This literally, so okay, that's what sub did as well. This literally creates an HTML string. If you do string.small, it returns a string that is wrapped in small quotes. Same thing with sub. It returns a string that's Do these exist in node.js? That's funny. That's hilarious. We're in Node version 18 and these functions still exist. It's useful in like, I guess if you're not using a template engine or like a front end framework or something like that. But I can say I never knew that these functions existed. Like I could imagine in a world where like React and Vue and Svelte don't exist and you're doing a lot of like templating with JavaScript, I imagine these could be useful. But that's crazy. All right, let's look at the Life is Yours most convoluted solution to a way to sort an array based on that. Is there string.div? That actually would be really funny if there's a string.div. String.blink. There is no string.div, but string.blink. Oh. I mean, this is not only is the function deprecated, the blink tag is also deprecated. These are just hilarious to me because you could just like whip these out. Like string.big is a thing. Is there a font size function? No. No. Does it? I don't think it would stand. Well, the thing is, it doesn't take in any arguments. These literally just wrap it. Oh well, we got to keep moving. Okay. Again, this is the most convoluted solution to sort an array based on an even index or remove even indices. We have a class for array item. It can determine whether or not it has an even index for itself. We also have a constructor around modulo. I wouldn't say this is convoluted. This is just enterprise code. This is just enterprise object-oriented code where everything has been abstracted and objectified. It's been turned into an object of methods. So we create a new list of array items, and then for every array item, we ask it, hey, is your index even? And if it is, then we push it into the result. I would argue you could get more convoluted than this. The Life is Yours. But I like it. It's honestly, it's fun to think in this way, especially if you're newer to object-oriented programming. So if it doesn't have an even index, then you implemented the wrong solution. Because you... Oh, no, never mind. It's the right solution. If it doesn't have... No. Yeah. Because you don't want to push it if it doesn't have an even index. Or you do want to push it if the index is even. But I think it is a good exercise to think about problems in an object-oriented way, because that's it. You've done it. All right. Let's look at people's solutions to the encrypt this function. Here we go. I think. Yep. So Hushu's solution says, split the incoming string on spaces, change each word or encrypt each word, and then join it back together. So change word grabs the first character's ASCII code, turns the string into an array so that they can replace specific indices. So then they swap the first and the last. Or sorry, they swap the second and the last. And then they join it all back together, remove the first one, and then add the ASCII code. One thing you could have done, I don't know if Hushu is watching, but you could have replaced the 0th index with the ASCII code and then just joined it. And then you wouldn't need to slice it. But good stuff. Let's keep moving. Disco Bandit did it. Let's see. You are here. Yeah. So does that make sense, Hushu? So basically, because you've already put it into a new array, replace the 0th index with ASCII and then just join it. Then you don't need to slice it or add ASCII onto it. All right. Disco Bandit did it as well. So they have their little encrypt word function. Grab the ASCII code, split the word, replace. Yeah, so this person did it the exact same way. Right? But am I wrong here? Yeah, I think it's just a matter of like, yeah, you didn't think about it when you implemented it. But yeah, I think that should work. Because you already have a new array, you could replace the 0th index. I will say this is probably easier to read than my solution, because my solution is have it. Well, I guess my solution has to use the substring function. I don't know. Sapphire says, "Why is this not working? Why is what not working?" Char code at 0 to string. Oh, because you strings in JavaScript are immutable. You cannot replace a character in a string in JavaScript, which is why in both Hushu's and Disco Bandit's solution, they had to turn it into an array first, because arrays let you change the values in the array, but strings, you can't just reach into a string and replace the first character. You have to create a new string. So yeah, that's why string at 0, you can't, that the code runs, but it doesn't actually replace it. You need to, if you want to do that, you have to turn it into an array and then go from there. Okay, let's see how else people have done it. Jasper. Maps for every word, get the first character code. Good. If it's less than 1, return that character code. If it's less than or equal to 2, return it with that. Otherwise, first character code, last character, whole word, starting at 2, ending at the last character, first character. That's fun. I didn't know. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't know this. I didn't know strings had the at function on them. I know it existed on arrays, but apparently at exists on strings too. Did this get added when it got added for arrays? It is new. It's not even listed on this site. They have a compat table. We can look at TC39 proposals. Was the Oh, yeah. I thought it was just for arrays, but it's for all built-in indexables. Cool. Yeah. That's great. That's awesome. I thought it was only on arrays, but apparently it's on strings too. So their solution, very similar to mine, but instead of using array indexing here, they used the at function. And then instead of using the substring function, they used a slice, which made it a bit easier because then you can just do -1 instead of length -1. Cool. All right. Craigium, see how they did it. All right. Wait. Oh, they map over the letters. I see. Yeah. So there. Yeah. No. On the surface, no difference between string bracket 0 versus string.at. What's useful about string.at is using negative indices. So by doing like or array.at, if you do -1, that grabs the last value in the array, or if you do -2, that grabs the second to last value in the array. So in my experience, that the at function is most useful when you want something from the end, because like negative indices are way easier than trying to calculate like length minus something. But this one is fun. This solution is fun because they not only map over it for each word, now for each word, they map over the letters. So this inner map is this is their encrypt function for an individual word. So for an individual word, if the index is 0, return that character at, and they're not doing a reduce, they're doing a map. So if the index is 0, get the character code. If the index is 1, grab the last character. If the index is the last index, grab the first character. If the last letter, return the second letter. Why do you need a slice right here? You could just do word at 2, right? No, this I think this. Yeah, not sure why I did that. Okay, I guess it works. I'm trying to think why it works though, because a 2 slice takes the number of. Let's look this up. String. We want string slice. Why did GitHub Copilot do that? The second value is index end. Oh, no, that's why. That's why. Because if you're going from index 1 to index 2 non-inclusive, then it's literally just index 1. That just says give me index 1, which is fine. And then otherwise return the letter itself. So yeah, I do like this. I like how this breaks down the logic of an individual word into discrete things that can be done with every letter in the word. Because basically, if we don't do anything, just return the letter as it is. And then after all of that, join it back together. But what this prevents us from having to do is we don't have to check the length of the string like we've done in all the other solutions. In this case, if the length is 0, only this is going to be performed because we're in a map. So yeah, I like that. What's up, Octolyptical? What is the aim of this stream? Oh, you're over on Twitch. So you probably can't hear me right now. I am reviewing last week's weekly challenge. You can try it here if you'd like. Welcome in, Octolyptical. Yeah, I mean, the whole point is because so that people can know where I'm streaming if they can't see me streaming, or if they didn't know I was already streaming. And what's up, Chad? Welcome in. I'm surprised people aren't using destructured swapping. Oh, that could work. Yeah, if you turn the word into an array, then you could use destructuring to swap those 2 characters in the result. All right, let's see. Limeoats did it in Go. It looks like a pretty beefy solution. Here we go. Split the sentence into words. Easy. For every word, create a string builder. If the word is empty, there are no characters in the word, just don't do it. Continue. Get the ASCII code from the first letter in the word. So I've done like C++ programming, and in those languages, if you want to turn a character into a number or to an ASCII code, you typically just cast it. So I'm guessing that's what's happening here, is we're casting a character to an integer, which gives us the ASCII code. And then for every word, we do the encrypting of the word. So for every letter in the word. So we have the index and then the letter in the word. If the index is 0, give it the ASCII code. If the index is 1, grab the letter on the end. If the index is on the end, grab the index at 1. Otherwise, grab the index itself. Cool. This is the other thing about a lot of like lower level programming languages is they have these things called string builders. Like they give you functionality for like building up strings. I guess it's not necessarily all like lower level languages because there are string builders like in C# and stuff like that too. Um, uh, yeah. YouTube says you have to be subscribed for 6 minutes. What? That should not be the case. I need to fix that if that's the case. Oh, that's probably. I'm sorry. There you go. Anyone can chat now. I don't like that. That's the default. It kind of it defaults to that setting. I appreciate the sub. I'm not trying to bait subs though. it keeps defaulting to that setting. I had to turn it off. Okay. Yeah. Do I have videos on JavaScript? I did C++ in university, but I think you need to go through JavaScript too. I don't have any like from the ground up JavaScript videos, but I do a lot of videos like this where I solve problems. What's up, Nuts? Welcome in. I solve problems with JavaScript, so you can see my thought process. Yeah, I'll direct you to that on my YouTube channel. If you look at playlists, there is the Code Katas playlist. This one. And basically, this is like over 70 videos of just me solving problems and like talking through my process. And I think, I mean, it's a lot, but by the nature of like watching me solve those problems, you can you can learn JavaScript that way, and also like learn problem solving as well. Okay. Yeah, great work, Lamotes. This is cool to see. Go honestly looks very approachable. I could probably do Go. Do string builders let you treat strings like arrays? I think so. I think that's a good line of thinking. Like the idea that you have the ability to replace, like it's not an immutable string, but you can build it up. I think that's the right line of thinking. But also, this is doing things like writing bytes. So this lets you write a specific byte, and from the looks of the code, it's moving forward. Like every time you write a byte, it's at the next place in the string. Yeah, fascinating. Okay. All right, Fat Child also did it. Let's see. In Python, that's also fascinating to see. In Python, split on a string splits on spaces by default, apparently. Huh. And then we're building up this output string here. We grab the first letter. ORD, I believe, is like ordinance or something, but this gives us back the ASCII code. If we're past the first index, wait, no. If the length of the word is greater than 1, I see, grab the last value. If it's greater than 2, put the rest of the word and the first value on the end. And then put a string on the end. And then after you're all done, remove the then put a space on the end. And then when you're all done, remove the last space on the end because we had an extra space. Fascinating. All right. This one also used JavaScript. We split the sentence into words. For every word, we split it into letters. We have the first letter and the rest of the letters. We grab the first char code. And then I think we're gradually removing. So we grab the length of the rest. And, oh, I see. If. Yeah. It's possible that there were no others. And that But that would be an empty array, wouldn't it? Oh, it would. That's why you can do that length. I was about to say, I thought they were doing if rest. No, but they're doing if there is anything else. Yeah, that's what I was confused for a second. I thought they were literally doing an if, and I was like, that's not going to work on an empty array, but they grabbed the length, which makes sense. So if there are some values past the first letter, basically, if the length of the word is longer than 1, then we can do this work here. The last index is going to be I. Our temporary value is going to be the first value in the array. The first value in the array is the last one, and then the last one is the first one. And in this case, not the first one, it's the second one because it's missing the first letter. Join it all together, put the ASCII code in front. Very good. All right. America 2050 did it as well. So for split it on spaces for every word. Yeah, and see you later, Luis. Thanks for hanging out. Grab the first character code. Give me the word without the first character. Yeah, that's that. That's what that line of code. I don't know why I had to think about that so much. Yeah, give me the word without the first character. If the remaining length of the word is greater than 2, then swap the first and the last. And then push it into encrypted. Yeah, great. All right, Jotaro did this one in Python as well. So yeah, like I said, ord is like, I think ordinance to get the ASCII code for a character. The end is going to be, I guess, a copy from the first index to the end. And if there was nothing left in the string, then you'd be done. But if there was, then you have to swap the first and the last. This is like doing a slice right here. So it's slicing the string to leave off the first, leave off the last. Yeah. All right, Mark Boots did it with regex. Whoa. All right. So replace every word that has a word boundary. What? And then you have the matchers. So this is going to be first, middle, and last. I'm curious. I think because you're doing non-greedy, it's grabbing a character? Well, the first would be the matching groups. So to me, this is the first, middle, and last. It would need to have parentheses to show up over here. Oh, never mind. But first is going to be the whole thing that matched, actually. Never mind. First is the whole thing. So that charcode at 0 is going to be the first character anyways. Last will be the last. Yeah. Well, okay. But yeah, I still don't know if I understand this correctly. I think this, because this is a non-greedy word matcher, it only matches a character for some reason. Because I thought /w was word. But I guess if you do a non-greedy word, then it's just a character. But if you do 0 or more characters non-greedy followed by the last character, that's such a funny regex. I don't know. All right. So because we've looked at so many, I'm going to scroll until I see something like completely original. Well, the question mark I don't think means it's optional. So W stands for word character. Okay. I thought question mark stood for non-greedy. So like a greedy one would keep matching, but non-greedy means like it stops at the first match. That's my understanding of question mark. It is optional. Okay. Optional and not greedy, I think, right? I'm gonna keep moving. Doesn't question mark on its own just mean 0 or 1? In the context of a regular expression, no. On the context of other things, maybe? All right, let's look at the solution. Grab the character code. If the word length is greater than 1, grab the character on the end. That could be fun to do. I see. Question mark after it means it's optional. Question mark before it means it's not greedy. Yeah, let's ask GPT to explain this regular expression, because that could be fun. Explain what is happening and what will match against this regular expression. Isn't that true? I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. Yeah, ChatGPT is wrong here because it's saying it's going to match words like hello world, but that's not the case. It actually matches within a word. Oh well. We gotta keep moving. I think we're done. I'm exhausted. I gotta get out of here. I think. Oh, this last one from Raccoon is like slightly different. I think because they used inline ternaries. So, if the length of the word is longer than 1, grab the last character or the second character. If it's longer than 2, grab the first character. Grab the middle, combine it all together. Cool. Cool. Do we know if this code even works? We don't, but we could plug it in. We could plug it into here to see. It works. So, yeah, that's fascinating. All right, I'm gonna get out of here, but I do want to remind you, if you want to participate next week, we have a set of challenge. We have a challenge for next week, and also a discussion topic for next week as well. So next week's code challenge is actually a CSS challenge. Basically, you need to recreate this image using only CSS and HTML. But basically, you're gonna have to create like multiple triangles. They need to be overlapping. And so we use a site called CSS Battle for this. So if you want to participate, you can attempt to solve this, throw your solution in the Discord, in the weekly challenge channel. And then also, next week, we're going to be talking about programming languages. So the discussion for next week is, what was your first programming language? If you had to start over, would you learn the same language again? What are your other favorite programming languages? Are there certain projects you've worked on that made more sense to write in a certain language? So if you have something to add to this, throw it in the Discord. We'll talk about it next week. But what's up, 51 Clardy, who says, it's been a hot minute since I popped into a stream. You're looking great. Well, thank you. Thank you. I've been trying to eat better. I definitely have slimmed down. I think I've probably lost like 8 pounds in the last year. I need to lose more, but yeah. Yeah, Eddie, thank you for being here. And I will say, yeah, so if you're just joining us, watch the first part of the stream, because we talked about Burnout. We talked about when and why to use TypeScript, and then we dove pretty deep into a bunch of coding problems as well. So we'd love to hear from you next week. So definitely join the Discord, chat with us in there. And then I think, are we going to do a game night this week? We might do a game night like next week. But if you join the Discord, you'll hear about it. So that's it. That's all. The next stream is planned for Friday. Schedule. Did I do that right? Yeah. So if you check out cdg.sh/calendar, it has my stream calendar. I will be live on Friday to work on a SvelteKit app. And thank you, 51 Cardi. I appreciate the compliment. Yeah, I'll see you all on Friday. Otherwise, I'll see you in the Discord. Be well, everyone. Appreciate you all. There's other places you can find me on the web. Follow me over on Twitter. I also have a mailing list, so I send out a weekly email that talks about the weekly challenge and weekly discussion topic, and then also any updates that are happening in the coding garden and stuff like that. So yeah, you all should have a good one too, and I'll see you. Be well. Wherever you are in the world, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night. And until next time, here's this.